the commission. But here you have the opportunity to vote and void that, or actually do what you did to housing providers. And we had 1.9% increase last year, a 3% increase this year. Why doesn't the city council do the same for them and say, hey, we're going to take 60% of CPI going forward and a 3% max per year, and go forward with that type of pay increase, just to be fair and equitable. Lastly, items 11 and 12 agree with the comments by Spur earlier. Good governance would be a little more transparent.
Thank you for your comments. The next speaker, Cynthia Billings.
Hello. Thank you, City Council. I'm in support of item 10, let the people vote. In the past month, we have witnessed in horror as our rights have disappeared. Poof. In our country's discussion on democracy, it has been reiterated time and again that the vote is fundamental to democracy, and it all starts at the local level. The people must have a vote for the on the A's project, and you must not block our right. Let me remind you that you represent us, the citizens of Oakland, not the concerns of the ball game franchise and the private ambitions of the Fishers, who even the sports editors of the San Francisco Chronicle have tried to warn you are not honest players. You should be further presenting more open forums on this project with all the real facts, impacts, and considerations transparently, and not hide behind Zoom and backroom deals as you have for the past 2 years. I would like to know how come it will cost millions to put this luxury enclave on the ballot any more than the Green New Deal or the tenants' rights or affordable housing issues. This does not make sense. This doesn't cost any more to put this issue on the ballot than anything else. I have lived in Oakland for 30+ years and have seen the most arcane issues presented. Historically, we have voted on public libraries, zoos, parks, and rec, and even the Lake Merritt necklace of lights. These are all of public interest. I say that this issue is even more important to us as you transfer much need.
I do apologize. Your 2 minutes is up. Laurel Polton is up next.
Hello, my name is Laurel Poten, and I've been a resident of District 1 and an active member in the Oakland community for over a decade. I love baseball. I urge you to vote no on this agenda item number 10. Oakland cannot afford to lose another major league sports team. Bringing this decisions to the voters will waste funds for the city of Oakland, and it will be difficult for the voters of Oakland to understand why and what they're voting on. This is about housing, this is about jobs, and this is bigger than baseball. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker is Risa Jaffe. Please unmute yourself and you may begin.
Yes, thank you. This is Risa Jaffe. I want to support item 14 to support public financing in Oakland elections. We really need ways to get more people's voices heard, and sadly money talks, so let's get some money into the hands of people who don't have the capacity to contribute to elections at this point. On item 10, this is not about whether or not I want to have that project happen. This is about whether or not we should have a vote, and as others have said, yes, we should have a vote. And as just a recent caller said, I don't understand where this millions of dollars it's going to cost us to put it on comes from. Also, people are talking about that voters, it's a confusing issue. Yeah, lots of things are confusing. It's confusing just trying to vote on our city council members and trying to get enough information to understand who we should vote for. Yes, voting is confusing. Those of us who really try to be educated, we can be confused lots of times. That doesn't mean we shouldn't try to get educated. That doesn't mean we can't figure out who's speaks with our values, who we know will do the research, who we can go to listen to help us be informed, and we need that opportunity. So please, this is not about whether or not you support the project going forward. This is about giving people the opportunity to let you know where they stand. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next in the queue is Evie Wang. You've been allowed to unmute yourself and you may begin your 2 minutes. Evie Wang, please unmute and you may begin. All right, Evie may be having technical issues. Chuck Leonard, you're up next. Please unmute yourself and you may begin.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You may begin.
And it's like I won lotto. Good afternoon, Madam President, Oakland City Council. My name is Chuck Leonard, and I am a member and the political representative for Plumbers and Steamfitters Local 342. I rise today opposing agenda item 10 for the proposed ballot measure for the future Howard Terminal Ballpark and Housing Project. By allowing this measure to go to ballot, it'll cost City of Oakland millions of dollars in taxpayer money, delay the negotiations, and more importantly, delay the construction of billions of dollars in new housing for Oakland. And as a 40-year union member, I believe that part of environmental justice is, and your disenfranchised communities, is to uplift them with jobs. I mean, you get through the politics and you get through the BS, it empowers a young man, a young woman, a middle-aged man, a middle-aged woman, whatever color you are, whatever race, whatever your background is. When you give somebody a job with prevailing wage, medical benefits, and a retirement program, and then educate them to the trade. This may be a short-term job, but short-term is 10 years. 10 years is a long time to have a job. I hope my second wife will stay married to me that long. So I want to challenge and encourage the city council to really take a look and look at the community. Jobs is an important component to what we need to provide for the men and women of Oakland. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for your comments. Mark Buck is up next. Please unmute yourself and you may begin. Mark Buck, you're up next. Mark Buck, please unmute yourself and you can begin your 2 minutes.
Good evening, City Council. Thank you for being here. It's been a long day. I'm here to vote. I would request a vote no on item number 10, the ballpark. It's a pipe dream that people keep talking about. The A's are going to build it. If you force them to build at the Coliseum, that's never going to happen. This will be a jewel for the city of Oakland. This will bring a lot of good jobs for a lot of people throughout the Bay Area, but especially in the Oakland area. So I please urge you to vote no on item 10. Thank you and have a good evening.
All right, thank you for your comments. Last call for Evie Wang. Evie Wang, you're up next. Please unmute yourself so you can begin your 2 minutes. Last call for Evie Wang. All right, we will go to Tali Sanchez. I apologize for mispronouncing the name.
Hi, thank you. Good evening, Oakland City Council members. My name is Ciclali Sanchez, Oakland resident of District 5 and political organizer with the Alameda Labor Council, where we represent over 135,000 workers. About 1,000 of those workers are members of several of our affiliate unions, including Unite Here, SEIU, the Teamsters, and IATSE, whose jobs are at stake. I am here and have waited over 7 hours to speak on behalf of those workers opposing agenda item 10. By allowing this measure to go to the ballot, it will cost the city of Oakland millions of dollars, unlike the Howard Terminal, which has been a misconception in taxpayer money. This will delay the negotiations and, more importantly, delay the construction over $10 billion in new housing for Oakland. Workers have been waiting patiently far too long to return to their job where they have invested over 10, 20 plus of their years with the plan to retire comfortably with a pension one day. These are not peanut stand jobs. These are real jobs. And it has been shown time after time that union jobs take people out of poverty and out of experienced homelessness. On behalf of thousands of those workers, we ask that you vote this proposal down and allow the process to move forward through the different government entities and boards. This is not to not give the community a say. This project has been in discussion for over years and has been open to the public. What this is this will delay the project and will only make workers wait even longer to get back to work where they can support their families, have health insurance, and continue to invest into a pension where they can retire comfortably. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Up next in the queue is Kwan. You may begin when ready.
Hi, thank you for the council members' endurance to this double meeting. I'm calling in support of item 13. I would like to note the shortcomings of the current measure at KK implementation so far. It is prioritized making driving faster, emphasizing convenience for drivers speeding through Oakland rather than those that live within it. Often, these projects have exacerbated safety issues, especially over the past few years. There are an innumerable count of crisis-level physical deficiencies with our existing road network, International being a particularly egregious case recently. The extent of this situation, especially throughout the flatlands, is highlighted by OCDOT's own identified high injury network map. If we bring Measure KK Part 2 to the voters in November, which I support, I think we need to structure its oversight and mandate and appropriately refocus road infrastructure and transit projects on fixing existing equity deficiencies that have made simply existing as a pedestrian on so many of our streets lethal. To provide a concrete example, the legislation states that $290 million would be set aside for transport projects in item 2, with street repaving being the top listed priority, item 2A. It currently states the following: street repaving and reconstruction. I would recommend that it state street paving and reconstruction with road design improvements that reduce traffic accidents and increase pedestrian safety. One way to do this would be to include a mandatory pedestrian safety redesign as a requirement of any road work through this fund. This would be an invaluable modification to ensure funds are not misappropriated to inadvertently make our streets more dangerous. Thank you, and I yield the remainder.
Thank you for your comments. Next is Jose. You are allowed to unmute yourself and you may begin your 2 minutes. Jose. Has Jose Pavin?
Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, you may begin.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. My name is Jose Luis Pavon. I work with SCIU USWW. I'm a resident of Oakland, and our local represents custodians, security officers, maintenance workers, and more at the current Oakland Coliseum who work for the A's. Our union is supporting the Howard Terminal project. We are asking for the City Council to vote no on item 10 on this agenda. And yeah, I'll just keep it short and I will see the rest of my time. Thank you very much.
We thank you for your comments. The next speaker in the queue is Twan. You are allowed to unmute yourself and you may begin your 2 minutes. Twan, you're up next.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Tuan. I'm also with the Neighbors Defending Our Homes Coalition. I just wanted to say that we're very deeply disappointed that the progressive business tax is not equitable for mom and pop housing providers. As it's proposed, if a grocer and a small local housing provider both earn the same amount of yearly income, the mom and pops would be paying 2,800% more in taxes. That's not equitable. Mom and pops are part of the solution to our housing crisis, and many provide low-cost housing. Many mom and pops are also minority and immigrant owners who provide housing to fellow minority and immigrant residents. When mom and pop housing are displaced, and taken over by large outside corporations, residents see higher rents and more displacement. We need to keep as many mom and pops as possible and have a fair and equitable tax structure. So please do what you can to make it fair for local residents who are providing housing. It's extremely hard to do, and we need to keep housing in our communities in Oakland. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Next in the queue is Eddie Munson.
I'm calling to voice my displeasure that item 10 is even on the agenda. It is a waste of time and being pushed due to sour grapes because the Coliseum is not a choice for the A's. Get over it. You are being led astray by the ILW and the EOSA, plus other lackeys who are out to lunch on the facts. Anyone saying the infrastructure is already at the Coliseum lacks understanding. You have to gut that entire site so you can be up to date with the 21st century technology. Why do you think you have a bunch of big trucks at the Coliseum for any event? You are running a 20th century operation. I don't have time nor crayons to explain that to you. It's time Oakland officially moves towards the 21st century. This status quo garbage is unacceptable for the lead city of the East Bay. You're still behind and will stay behind if you mess this up. And the resolution's language is about as sharp as a marble. So in one instance, it's admitted that the stadium will be privately financed, but then the next breath, the ballot measure insinuates that it will use public funds for it to be built. Who wrote this Space Cadet manifesto? You guys are just trying to confuse those who don't really pay attention to this stuff. Council, you have a job to make decisions on these matters, not to do a cover your butt moment. It's not noble, it's cowardly. You're willing to let some gray hair, gray beard old men or some undersized patriot journalists convince you that losing another billion-dollar entity is good? For the issues of homelessness, poverty, and crime, you better get your GDP increase and show the world Oakland can do big business. Otherwise, you're being failures. How are you going to improve this city if businesses are apprehensive on coming here? Time to finally put on some business hats, or you will still be characterized as do-nothing Democrats. Make the damn vote on the development deal and stop hiding behind citizens. This is high time to make a move. Do something for Oakland's future. Stop listening to all these lies. Otherwise, this city is going to fall by the wayside even more than it is now. Have a nice day.
The next speaker in the queue is Juan Canham.
I wanted to voice my support for public financing of elections, as well as for putting the A Stadium on the ballot. I think a lot of people are talking about whether money is going directly to it, but it doesn't really matter. Like, it's clearly going to affect the funding priorities for the council for the next few years, and that's something a voter should get a say on. That's about it. I see the rest of my time.
Thank you for your comments. The next speaker is Michael Kale.
Good evening, members of the council, and thanks for staying up late with us tonight. I'm a resident of District 4. I've got serious concerns about item 10, the Howard Terminal measure, and I want to focus on the text of the measure itself. When you read the resolution that comes before the measure, it correctly states that, at least in the most recent proposal that we've seen, there's no public funds that will be used on the ballpark itself, and the city has not committed to using any general fund dollars for the project. But then when you go to the text of the measure that will actually appear on the ballot, neither of those facts are there. The text was rushed. It was by design in order to throw up obstacles after the successful EIR and BCDC votes by a group of out-of-town companies unhappy with the results that hired a fancy PR firm. There's no doubt that if we present a fair question, that our city residents will be able to evaluate it. But as it's written, we're just inviting more misleading mailers by those same companies. The public interest here would truly be served if our council got involved and pushed all the parties to get two fair deals done. The first fair deal at Howard Terminal to keep the A's in Oakland, and the second one to make sure that the Coliseum site gets redeveloped. And we already have a plan for that with the African American Sports and Entertainment Group that a lot of people would like to see succeed. This measure throws up obstacles for the A's, but it also throws up an obstacle for the AASEG. The council is best positioned to evaluate any proposed deal and make sure that it is both fair to the city and that it protects the general fund. There are plenty of ballot measures here tonight that are worthy of your support, but the Howard Terminal measure is not one of them. I respectfully ask that you vote no on item 10 and not put it on the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. The next speaker is Mark. You're allowed to unmute yourself and begin your 2 minutes. Mark, you're up next in the queue. Zoom user by the name of Mark, you're up next. Please unmute yourself and you may begin. All right, Mark may be having issues. We will go to Bert. Bert, you are up next. Please unmute yourself and you may begin. Bert Boltich. Bert, you are up next. If you can hear me, please unmute yourself and you may begin. All right. We will go to the next speaker, Mike Davey. You are allowed to unmute yourself, Mike Davey.
Hi, good afternoon to members of the City Council, the listening public, and A's fans all over the world listening in. I am here to encourage City Council to vote no on item 10. I had a different thing written down, but judging by all these comments, like nobody really knows what we're voting on. We're just saying random stuff, and it's just going to be a referendum on John Fisher. It's going to be a referendum on Howard Terminal, public dollars. Vote no on this. The City Council has made great strides from this. Let the City Council continue to do their work. If it goes again, I'm in favor of the stadium, but even if it goes against the stadium, I'm okay with that. Just let this public vote thing is being funded by out-of-town billionaire dollars. It is being supported by the San Francisco Giants, who are using their attorney to represent these Schnitzer Seals. And so it's like, it's just turning into a bigger mess than it needs to be. Let the City Council, let staff, let everybody else do their jobs. And then hopefully it all works out for the best for the city and the A's. And more importantly, our taxpayer dollars. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next up in the queue is West Oakland Cultural Action Network. You are allowed to unmute yourself and begin your 2 minutes. West Oakland Cultural Action Network. Please unmute yourself and you may begin. West Oakland Cultural Action Network. You're up next. You can unmute yourself and you can begin your 2 minutes. All right, we will come back to that user. Go to the next one in the queue. 1 second. Next in the queue, the number ending in 9932, phone number ending in 9932. You're up next.
Black homeless advocate, Parker. Hopefully one day to say that I'm a part of the League of Black Voters and Poll Workers, which I can see now even more so. It's very important that we get that together. I've been having an issue with drop calls, and I've missed a lot of minutes today. I'll talk about that another time. But I definitely like to congratulate Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson for being in. I'd like to correct something I mentioned about Norway being a part of NATO. It was actually Sweden and Finland. That's important for world peace and world safety. It was sad to see a black man shot with over 60 times, while a white man that shot 30 people was apprehended very nicely and calmly. It's a sad day in America when that happens. It always is. I'd also like to mention really quickly about the A Stadium. An average family of 4 at $20 a ticket, $10 a hot dog, $20 a beer, $10 for a soda drink. No average family is going to be able to even afford the stadium. It's ludicrous to hear people talking about that stadium like it's some kind of prize. It is nothing but a billionaire's dream. We all know it. And like those 2 previous callers said, everyone needs to get a vote. You would deny people an opportunity to vote. I can't wait to see who votes this down on next week, because that means you're just about money. You need to be voted for. Everyone should have the opportunity to vote. That's the democratic system. It would be ridiculous if we could not vote on this. That is just terrible. And to hear all these high-end people calling, you guys are just in the pockets of the rich people, mainly the fishers.
Thank you for your comments. So I will read the last 3 hands that were raised. We tried calling earlier who didn't get an opportunity to speak, but that will conclude those who raised their hand at the call of the queue when the special meeting began. I'll start with Evie Wang.
Hello, thank you for giving me another chance. I had walked away momentarily and missed my earlier cue. My name's Evie Huang. I'm a customs broker and a port stakeholder, represent brokers and forwarders of Northern California, users of the port. Aside from that, the concern is really to vote yes on item 10 to allow the Oakland residents and taxpayers to have a voice. Oakland is at a crossroad right now. The city needs transparency and responsibility on public funds for infrastructure, environmental concerns that will impact any building on Howard Terminal or anywhere. Remember, the A's promise of using their own money is for what they want to build on the land. The city will be now and forever be liable for what is underneath. Once you start digging, what will the city be liable for? Once you start digging, will you bury the port with the dirt that is due through construction and all of the matters that a stadium, luxury condos, and everything else that goes with the dream of a ballpark and multiplex will bring? Put a vote to taxpayers and residents for the sake of Oakland. Make sure you know why, yes or no, that this project at Howard Terminal should go through and what the implications of gentrifying that district will mean for the rest of Oakland. I beg of you to vote yes, take a breather. And as I think Councilman Taylor said earlier, that more time needs to be made on any public hearings on such an important issue. Thank you so very much.
Thank you for your comments. We will take again the last few hands that we tried to allow to speak again. We will go with Mark. Mark, you are allowed to unmute yourself. Please do so you can get one more opportunity to speak. Mark. Going once, going twice. Mark. All right. We will go to the next person we gave an opportunity to speak, Henry Hitz. Henry, you are allowed to unmute yourself and you may begin your 2 minutes. Henry Hitz, please unmute yourself and you may begin. All right, no Henry. Again, giving these last few people another opportunity to try to speak. Next, Mark. Mark, if you can hear us, we cannot hear you, but you would need to unmute yourself to do so. So please unmute yourself. Okay, no Mark. Mike Davey, you're up next. Mike Davey, you
Hi, you already got most of my take earlier. I don't know how I ended up on this twice, but thank you.
Thank you. And the last person who we gave an opportunity to speak, will give you one more opportunity. West Oakland Cultural Action Network. West Oakland Cultural Action Network. You are up next. Please unmute yourself and you may begin your 2 minutes. All right, well excuse me, 1 second. Barbara Leslie, you are allowed to unmute yourself and you may begin. Barbara Leslie.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great, thank you. Council President Bass and members of the City Council, I'm Barbara Leslie, CEO for the Oakland Metropolitan Chamber of Commerce. It's been a long day and maybe a longer evening, so thank you for the opportunity for the chamber to weigh in on a few items during today's deliberations, including our support for the Lakeshore bid and modifications to the proposed special event permit fees for community events that generate much needed and very important support for our commercial corridors and neighborhood small businesses. On today's special agenda, you had 6 ballot measure proposals for consideration. Now you have 5. And of course, earlier today during your other meeting, you deferred 2 others to July 11th. I'd like to speak to the good government measures you will be considering later this evening. And I would like to echo the comments made by our colleagues at SPUR, as well as the League of Women Voters, whom the chamber partnered with a few years ago on a similar ballot measure proposal for your consideration that included more advanced public hearings, as well as fiscal and legal review before council deliberations. We continue to advocate for more time and transparency in the process, and today is an example of the confusion created when so much is brought forward pretty late in the game. There are some items today, but being proposed today, like term limits, that Oakland voters are relatively familiar with and have weighed in on their thoughts on the matter. However, there are multiple additional items for consideration that most voters would not be as familiar with, yet if implemented, would have significant impacts on the way our city is governed. We support a more deliberative and inclusive community process before these move forward. Having spent the last 2 years working on the business tax measure, I was heartened to hear comments by other speakers on its comprehensive and collaborative process. Although not easy, the commitment by opposing parties to come to the table and seek resolution resulted in a better outcome. But that takes time and a willingness to find common ground, even with those with whom you vigorously disagree. Our lead colleague said it best earlier this afternoon. We are better served if everyone participates in the legislative and electoral process. This is not only true in November at the ballot box, but should include transparency during the development of any measure bill.
Madam Chair, that was the last person who had their hand raised at the close of the queue when this special meeting began. There are hands that were raised once we resume this meeting. What is your pleasure? Madam Chair, I'm not sure if you're speaking, but we do not hear you.
Yes, thank you. I'm just taking a look at the queue. I do want to make sure that we call those who had their hands up. I did hear that Eddie Dillard had some technical issues. I know it's been a long night, but I believe there's 11 people. If we could just give Eddie Dillard 2 minutes and the remainder, if they didn't have their hands up, 1 minute, that would be great.
All right, thank you for that. As stated by the chair, we will give Eddie Dillard 2 minutes, and then the remaining 10 people will get 1 minute apiece. Eddie, you are unmuted and allowed to unmute yourself, and you may begin your 2 minutes. Eddie Dillard, you're up next.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, and thank you, President Bass. Very quickly, I want to cover 4 issues. I'm representing the NAACP Labor and Industry Committee, and I wanted to vote no on 2.11, the Ray Electric contract, because I don't see any SLBE report. I also want to support the opioid crisis issue. I also want to vote no on item 6, the sanitary sewer, because of no SLBE report. On item number 8, we asked Lauren Taylor, we asked Mary Mayberry not to bring that item to the council until the Black contractors have had an opportunity to vet the action and give feedback and comment on it. They're bringing it to the council regardless of our position, and our position is the council should table this issue until we've had a chance to meet with Mary Mayberry and show her that it's not in Oakland's best interest to invite firms that are not headquarters in Oakland to be certified. Finally, to all those people that are supporting the AIDS project, they're not considering the regentrification of Oakland and West Oakland. They're not considering the 3,000 homes that will be lost. They're not considering that the A's have set up a special taxing district in West Oakland and West Oakland alone to use taxpayers' money. The labor unions, there's 28 of them. 26 of them have no Black representation in their membership. Only the carpenters and the laborers. That's not equitable, and we do not.
Thank you for your comments. As stated by the chair, the remaining 10 speakers will be given 1 minute to speak. So I will start with Julian Ramirez, Desmond. Julian, you are allowed to unmute yourself. You may begin your 1 minute.
Hello. Okay. Hello. Thank you, City Council members, for putting on this meeting. I would like to speak. I would like to, first of all, say vote against this measure. As stated by previous speakers, this measure is being pushed by the East Oakland Stadium Alliance. This cotillion is full of polluters, including Schultzer Steel, which is located near where the ballpark wants to be built. So by supporting this measure, you're basically supporting the side of these polluters. Additionally, I want to make it clear that this project will use no public funds. Once again, the public funds things is a lie being pushed by them. Continue negotiating with the A's. There is no need to delay this project any further than it already is. I yield my time.
Thank you for your comments. The next speaker in the queue, Desmond, you have been allowed to unmute yourself. Please do so, and you may begin your minute. Desmond Jeffries.
Thank you, council member and staff. My name is Desmond Jeffries, a policy professional and Oakland resident. Vote yes on the item 10 to place the stadium on the ballot. It is too controversial for the council to vote on the item and should go to the public. The decision will affect the economic stability and economic advantage of the region, including the city and county of San Francisco. Remember, food and goods the public uses every day comes from the cargo shipped from the Pacific in Oakland. Remember, San Francisco does not have an active port. It is a tourist city, which is why the Giants were able to use the waterfront. Baseball is not a priority, but food, clothing, and household goods are. Let's get the city's priorities in order and use these funds for low-income housing and fixing these damn potholes. The A's and John Fisher remind me of a bad used car dealer that sells you a lemon vehicle. The costs outweigh the benefits. And shortly, you will want to get rid and return the vehicle, but you can't because you will be upside down in your loan and the vehicle loan versus the actual worth of the car. We need to stop millionaire parasites using Oakland like an ATM. The forecasted growth, Oakland will not meet its capacity.
Thank you for your comments. We do apologize. 1 minute was up. Tayshaun Kwamalele, Kai, Zephanon Abraham, Mario, Frankie, Michael Susan, Cameron Kong, and Craig Gordon. Tayshaun, you are allowed to unmute and begin your 1 minute.
Thank you. I would like to add that my hand was raised prior to the queue closing at our noon meeting when it closed at 1:12. So I'm not sure why my name wasn't called during the 2 minute time limit earlier. Nevertheless, I will continue. First, I will say in support of item 8, I think that the city council needs to provide Mrs. Mayberry with the resources to lead the department as needed. As it relates to item 10, first thanking Councilmember Gallo and Fife for their leadership and wanting to say that I am in support of item 10 to give an advisory opinion on the right to use, on the voters to give an advisory opinion on the right to use public funds. The city drew a line in the sand limiting the amount of public funds available to keep the Raiders in Oakland and the Raiders left. Why that limit is not in play for the A's is beyond me. Furthermore, we do not have to lose the state and federal infrastructure dollars, as there is a long list of capital projects that have been waiting for many years to be addressed. That is why prioritizing a billionaire's real estate development over critical city infrastructure projects is, again, beyond me. I urge you to vote yes on item 10. And just as a reminder, if I had to sit on this call for 7+ hours to give public comment, this is why a vote should happen, because most of our everyday Oaklanders aren't allowed to do so.
Thank you for your comments. The next speaker is Kai. You are allowed to unmute yourself and you may begin your 1 minute.
Okay, thank you. Hi, my name is Kai Chang and I'm a resident of the East Bay, mostly Oakland since 1980 and a homeowner in D1 for the last 13 years. I urge you to vote no on item 10. I'm not usually opposed to direct democracy, but the misinformation repeated by nearly everybody supporting item 10 is frightening. essentially proving just how the issue is indeed a bit too complicated for most people to evaluate. I'd much rather people spend the time to get familiar with the racial injustice of the war on drugs and the Emerald New Deal, and the 7 other state ballot measures, 2 county measures so far, and many other city measures being considered. Like a bad poker player, EOSA has tipped their hand on what they intended to do with this ballot measure. Over 2 weeks, they flooded Oakland mailboxes with 4 flyers loaded with misinformation and a quick click link to flood your inboxes with form letters from distressed residents. There's an unfortunate history in California of moneyed interest groups like EOS, using ballot initiatives to get their way on policies that are good for them and bad for the people. There was Prop 22, which funded rideshare companies and.
I do apologize. Your 1 minute was up. Xenophon Abraham, you are.
Thank you, everybody. I'm Zenny Abraham, longtime District 3 resident. I'm also the person that on the April 4th of 2017, during a phone conversation with then new President Dave Cavall, introduced him to the idea of using enhanced infrastructure financing district legislation for Howard Terminal, because I told him you're not going to be able to get that project through without affordable housing. He took that, worked with Nancy Skinner, and created SB 293 Skinner, which is to be the enabling legislation for Howard Terminal. The legislation that you're asked to vote on doesn't reflect SB 293 Skinner. Did you know that you can select a number of projects, like, for example, the 1.5 billion that are mentioned in the legislation for tonight, as a project of community-wide significance, and other projects, council members Taylor, Reed, and others could designate those. Still, it hasn't been done. You're being presented a lie. That's not the right one. Don't vote on it. It's wrong. Eliminate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments. Mario Wagner, you're up next. Please unmute yourself and you may begin.
Yes, my name is Mario Wagner. Thanks for the opportunity to speak today. I am the Vice President of the National Association of Minority Contractors. I've had the opportunity to speak with several of our members, and we are not against moving forward with the recommendations from Department of DWES when it comes to the changes that have to be made in order to make certification possible. We have some requests, and we have talked with the interim director, and she has made it clear that she is in agreement with those requests. So anybody need to get in touch with me, feel free. My phone number is available, and I'm open for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next in the queue is Frankie. Frankie, you are allowed to unmute yourself. Please do so, and you may begin your 1 minute.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you for taking the call. This is a classic. I urge you to vote no on item 10 when it comes to the advisory recommendation. It's a classic misinformation campaign and classic stall tactic by the usual suspects, EOSA, okay, and all the people they're backing and so forth, to try and provide misinformation to the public and to the citizens of Oakland, okay? And by hearing some of these phone calls today, right, they are misinformed, and it's working for some of them, okay? Let's vote no on that. And also, this is backed by Schnitzer Steel, which is a $1 billion corporation polluter that's been around for decades over there in West Oakland, okay? Now, by allowing the stall tactics continue, right, it's going to allow the Oakland A's and the team, the last professional sports team in Oakland, to go bye-bye, and no other sports teams will come back, and all that positive economic impact that project will bring to the city of Oakland, which is badly needed, will be gone with it for decades. The negative ramifications.
Thank you for your comments. Next is Michael Ginter. You are allowed to unmute yourself and you may begin.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
My name is Michael Ginter, and I'm a business representative for Operating Engineers Local 3. I'm speaking tonight to urge you to vote no tonight. The proposed housing and stadium project would bring over 3,000 new housing units that will be built by the best trained local union workforce in the country. The project will also produce thousands of local long-term non-construction union careers with the hotels and restaurants. So let's get this incredible project started and vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next speaker is Susan Ransom. You may unmute yourself and begin your 1 minute. Susan Ransom, you're up next.
Hey, here's the deal. This is why ballots are important. And yes, I live in Oakland. I've heard a small entity dig on EOSA and talk about who is sponsoring them, which means we've been effective. I challenge those opposing EOSA, just discount one thing. They're giving facts. Council members, you know, we've been on this a long time. You know what's good and what's not good. It's a little hypocritical considering they're supporting their own billionaire. As we know, most speakers are connected to them. Read up, please, and wait until September financial review. Don't be afraid. This is definitely, quote, bigger than baseball. Has the same agenda of discounting EOSA. So I invite everyone that has been on this call for the last 8 hours to go to the EOSA website, go to the A's website, listen to the mayor and make your own decision on your own angles. Those fighting the ballot, why are you afraid? You might win.
Thank you for your comments. The next speaker is Cameron Kong. You may unmute yourself and you can begin your 1 minute.
Susan, I love your last name. Anyways, good evening. My name is Cameron Rahim Kong, a young teenager from Alameda County. Please vote no to this measure. This is pushed by the main opponents of this project, East Oakland Stadium Alliance, and they do not care about this public awareness. They care about delaying the projects for their own benefit. I really couldn't tell you much about the fine print about what is going on right now, and I think that's hints as to why the council should vote no on this project. It is rushed. I would like to remind this council that no public funds will be used in this project. How does that make sense? If I wanted to extend my house, should I have to put that on the November ballot? This is ridiculous. In addition, there's also a lot of public misinformation going around on the subject that will sway voters to a lie. This will confuse and delay everything. We are all rooted in Oakland. Let's go sweep the Jays. This is bigger than baseball, and thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. The next 2 speakers that are left in the queue that were allowed to speak is Anne Marie Garcia and Craig Gordon. Anne Marie, you are up next. You may begin your 1 minute. Please unmute yourself.
Hi, hello. I don't know where to begin. I think the hypocrisy on the rhetoric of the residents that are voting no on having this on the ballot as misinformation should not boggle my mind, but it really does. And not only do I think this project should be delayed and stalled, it should be stopped altogether. The racism behind it, the gentrification, the injustice, what's going to happen to Oakland with really good paying jobs, union paying jobs. So you're going to provide jobs like in the concession stand, serving Cokes and stuff like that, while displacing all these people with good jobs. And I'm very upset about this. And I think that it should be put on the ballot. And those of you who are paranoid, stop. Because if you're in the trades, you're going to have plenty of opportunity. We can upgrade the infrastructure at the existing one, rehabbing all the empty buildings, building.
Thank you for your comments. And the last speaker allowed to speak at this time is Craig Gordon. You've been unmuted. Unmute yourself and you may begin.
Yeah, hi. My hand was up before way before this morning. But anyway, I'm a teacher in Oakland, a member of the Oakland Education Association. I'm in favor of putting this on the ballot. Our union voted to oppose the Howard Terminal project. And we are stand in solidarity with ILWU and SEIU 1021. And by the way, the A's website falsely lists my union, the Oakland Education Association, and SEIU 1021 is in favor of the project. It is not. Somebody is talking. Okay. There is money, public money that's going to be used for infrastructure. All of the workers, and other unions should be united against this project. Against the billionaire class, but shamefully, some so-called labor leaders have been lured into pitting jobs that could be had at the Coliseum project against jobs that have to be at the port. Vote for putting this on the ballot.
I do apologize. Your minute was up, and that concludes our public comment speakers for this agenda.
Thank you to everyone who has joined us today and shared your comments. We are going to continue on with our meeting. So at this point, I would like to ask Councilmember Taylor to chair the next portion of the meeting. And this is going to be our hearing on the jihad. I do
Great.
see Mitesh Bhakta, did you want to speak first?
No, Chair Bass, my hand was for the consent calendar.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Councilmember Taylor.
So through the chair, I believe you need to take a motion to adjourn and then reconvene as the GAD.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion to adjourn into the Leon Aquarian Oakland Area Geological Hazard Abatement District, moved by, was that Councilmember Cobb, seconded by Taylor?
Yes.
Councilmember Fife?
Aye.
Councilmember Gaio?
Aye.
Councilmember Cobb?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Kaplan?
Aye.
Councilmember Reed?
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor?
Aye.
Pro Tem Tao?
Aye.
President Bass?
Aye.
We are now adjourned into the Leon Aquarian Oakland Area GAD.
Great. Madam Clerk, why don't we go ahead and read in the first item?
Item 2.1, conduct a public hearing and upon conclusion, adopt a resolution confirming assessment and authorizing the levy and collection of the assessment for the Kenilworth development within the Oakland Area GAD district.
Great. Do we have a staff report? GAD Administrator?
Yes, good evening, Chair and board members. I am Haley Ralston with the GAD Manager, NGO Incorporated, and I will be presenting the staff report for this item and the next item for the Oakland Area GAD this evening. Before the board tonight is Resolution 2203 to conduct a public hearing and upon conclusion, adopt a resolution confirming the assessment and authorizing the levy of the assessment of the Kenilworth development within the Oakland Area GAD. On June 7th, 2022, the board accepted Resolution 2202, tabulating the assessment vote from the property owner of the Kenilworth development, which did not have any majority protest against the assessment. The board is being asked to confirm the assessment tonight. If approved, the applicant will record the notice of assessment and assessment diagram for the Kenilworth development, which will enact the levy to be on the parcels within the development for the GAD responsibilities within the development. And this concludes my report on this item, but we're available for any questions the board may have.
Thank you. And I believe we need a motion to open the public hearing.
So move.
Second.
Madam Clerk, let's take the roll.
Was that Gaio and Reed? Is that
Yes.
who I heard?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you, Councilmember Fife. To open the public hearing.
Aye.
Councilmember Gaio,
Aye.
Councilmember Cobb,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Kaplan,
Aye.
Councilmember Reed,
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor,
Aye.
sorry, Pro Tem Tao,
Aye.
President Bass.
Aye.
Public hearings open with a vote of 8 ayes.
Thank you. Colleagues, any, I guess, clarifying questions before we hear from any public commenters? Not seeing any. If there's anyone in the public who wants to speak on this specific item with the GAD that the Geological Hazard Abatement District is hearing, item 2.1, raise your hand. It looks like we have a speaker. Madam Clerk, can you call the public speakers?
Yes, at this time, I show Ms. Olabala with the only hand raised at this time. Ms. Olabala, you are allowed to unmute yourself and you may begin your 2 minutes. Good evening.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I have several concerns. The GLAD funding that is being approved by the developer for the future owners of the property because it says GLAD funding will be shared by all of the property owners within the GLAD annex area. This is the second time where, because the developer is the owner of the property, he's making decisions about future owners. We're talking about 346 individual properties and 569 condominium units. The other thing I'm concerned about is in the report, we've identified 10 different issues of geographic hazards, including slope instability, seismic issues, shaking and landslides. I mean, all of these issues that have been identified in this area, in this report, how does this impact the stability of homes that are going to be built there? So you have soil creeps, you have groundwater 2 feet below the surface. And it's not just the issue of people funding to correct these issues through this process you're engaging in. These are some serious issues. But again, I'm gonna go back to the first thing I said. This is the developer making a decision to put on the future homeowners to pay for this so-called GLAD funding. And that process is not fair. They should be able to vote. I think it was some other issue was the homeowners association. So I don't know if the council members are, this is District 7, District Reed, all of these hazardous.
I do apologize, Ms. Olabalo. Your 2 minutes are up, and our next speaker for this item is a number ending in 9932. You have been unmuted, and you may be allowed to speak towards this item.
Black Homeless Advocate, League of Black Voters and Poll Workers. Hopefully one day we'll have that together. I just wanted to chime in really quickly. We've heard a lot of callers call in saying that they were excluded from this morning's queue. That was myself included. I just wish you
Mr.
guys
Parker, sorry for interrupting. This is about the Geological Hazard Abatement District. So if you keep the comments focused to this topic.
Yeah, I didn't have much to say. I'm just saying you guys need to get the technical things together, geological or not. We have to be able to speak. If we can't speak, we can't get in to speak. It won't matter about public comment. Thank you.
Thank you for that, and that concludes our public comment speakers for this GAD item.
Great. Colleagues, any questions? Any motion? The staff recommendation is that the GAD board adopt resolution 2022-03, confirming the assessment and authorizing the levy and collection of the assessment for the Kenilworth development within the Oakland Geological Hazard Abatement District.
Move approval.
Moved by Kaplan, seconded by Gaia. Let's go ahead and
Motion
take the
to
roll.
approve the item moved by Vice Mayor Kaplan, seconded by Councilmember Gaia. And I'm by the same motion closing the public hearing.
Yes.
Yes.
Councilmember
Yes.
Fife,
Aye.
Councilmember Gaia,
Aye.
Councilmember Cobb,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Kaplan,
Aye.
Councilmember Reed,
Aye.
Councilmember Pro Tem Tao. Aye. Council President Boss
Aye.
and Chair Taylor.
Aye.
Item 2.1 is approved with a vote of 8 ayes. Going to item 2.2. Take a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
On the motion to open the public hearing, moved by Councilmember Reed, seconded by Councilmember Fife. Councilmember Fife,
Aye.
Councilmember Gaia,
Aye.
Councilmember Cobb,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Kaplan,
Aye.
Councilmember Reed,
Aye.
Pro Tem Tao. Aye. Council President Boss,
Aye.
Chair Taylor.
Aye.
Public hearing is open with a vote of 8 ayes. I will now read the item. conducts a public hearing and upon conclusion, adopt a resolution approving the annexation of the Oakland project into the Oakland area GAD and adopt the Oakland plan of control.
Great, let's go ahead and hear the staff report.
Thank you, Chair Taylor. At the June 7th, 2022 board meeting, the board approved resolution 2204, accepting the petition for annexation of the Oak Knoll development into the Oakland area GAD. The Oakland area GAD currently includes two developments, the Sienna Hill development and the Kenilworth development. Tonight before the board is the public hearing to approve the official annexation of this development into the Oakland area GAD, as well as approve the plan of control for the Oakland area GAD for the Oak Knoll development within the Oakland area GAD. The plan of control for the Oak Knoll development describes the GAD's responsibilities within the development and is included in the petition for annexation. If approved, funding for the GAD's responsibilities within the Oak Knoll development will be brought before the board at a later date. In addition, a resolution approving the annexation of the Oak Knoll development into the Oakland area GAD will be brought before the Oakland City Council, as the City Council was a legislative body who initially formed the Oakland area GAD. This concludes my report, but I'm available for any other questions the board may have.
Thank you, Ms. Ralston. Colleagues, any questions? If so, raise your hand. Otherwise, we will go to the public. Not seeing any hands. Let's go ahead and call the public speakers.
Thank you for that. I show one hand at this time raised. Ms. Olabala, you are allowed to unmute yourself and you may begin.
Yeah. Okay, this is the Oak Knoll. I made a mistake in speaking last time to the other one. This is the one that has the annexation of a certain part of the total project as a GLAD geographical hazardous area. And the report is ridiculous because I think it's very important that you have in the written report these 10 items of geographical hazards identified on the site. Slope instability, seismic ground, shaking and landslides, exit fillings, groundwater 2 feet below the surface, soil creep, and some of the other ones that are on here. And you guys are just going to rubber stamp this because people are going to be living on this property. And as I said before, the developer is deciding that the future owners of the property will share in the GLAD funding, not the people who eventually will own the property. One person for over 349 single family homes and 569 condominiums. And it's just a process where the developer is making, and it's happened before, making these decisions. So the petition for annexation should have some discussion about this issue of geographical hazards that exist on this property, Ms. Reed. That's a whole lot of different things that are going on that property. And it's not a matter of fixing it. How did we ever get to the point of building on this property with all of these hazards? It's ridiculous.
I do apologize, Ms. Olabala, your 2 minutes are up. The next speaker is Desmond Jeffries, and following Desmond, our last speaker in the queue for this item is the Beekman. Desmond, you are allowed to unmute yourself when you may begin.
Yeah, I think the site is going to have some serious geological issues. To be annexed, I think won't be in the best interest. I think you guys might want to do an analysis of the GAD. The more houses and the more people that put into the pot could actually lower the cost for all of the residents to analyze and do studies on that property and get it and do the mitigation. So that's what should be done. And hopefully you guys could study it some more and before you approve this measure. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. The next speaker and the last speaker with your hand raised at the call of the queue is B. Beekman. You are allowed to unmute yourself and you may begin.
Hi, Wade Beekman here. Thanks a lot for this item. Thanks a lot. I raised my hand a little late. I just wanted to thank the first public comment and the previous public commenter. I think they made really good observations and why we have this sort of item at as a public agenda item. It's good to hear public input and what's needed. You know, I have of course, my own concerns about the future of earthquakes in the Bay Area that I'm trying to learn to just mellow out about. And so this item is of interest to myself. How do we talk about the future of earthquakes and its preparedness, and what are our better selves and better practices to do that? And yeah, the first two public commenters were great on this item, what we need to really be considering and looking at. And I thank them for that, and good luck how we can be considering this sort of issue. I mean, it has its name, as its name suggests, the Geological Hazard Abatement District. This is a pretty heavy area of questions. Our questions become particularly difficult and questionable at this time. Good luck how you can make that process open and understandable, and to work in the terms of it being this fearful, specialized process that it is. Good luck how you can explain that to ourselves as the public or as a community process. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, and that was our last speaker for this item.
Thank you. Before we move on and sort of hear from our colleagues, I would like to address the issue, at least what was raised. There were some concerns about how we are, or how the GAD is set up to address the geological hazards that are there. And so I don't know, Ms. Ralston, if you're able to just speak to the plan of control. I know there's a 58-page report that, you know, folks may not have read. It's in the agenda packet. And so maybe you could just speak to like the outline of what's in there and how that is used to help support the anticipation, preemption, and then addressing of geological hazards if and when they arise.
Yes, thank you, Chair Taylor. I would be happy to. So the plan of control, as shown here tonight, is showing all of the responsibilities that the Oakland Area Geologic Hazard Abatement District, or GAD, will have for this development specifically. In order for the GAD to take ownership later long-term of these open space and responsibilities, it does go through a punch list with the developer to make sure that everything was built in accordance to city-approved grading plans. So as the development is currently being graded, a lot of these geologic hazards are currently being mitigated or lessened. However, we do know, earthquakes are still prevalent and unpredictable. And so that's what are some of the GAD responsibilities long-term will be to step in to take care of those items that are outlined within the plan of control. In addition, I know that there has been several iterations and meetings with the city going over the responsibilities of the GAD and other entities within the Oak Knoll development. So I believe between the city and the GAD and the developer, that everyone's in a pretty comfortable spot of what is going to be maintained long-term as far as GAD, city, and geologically.
Thank you for providing that a background for the public's benefit. Colleagues, any other questions or a motion?
Move approval.
I think that's moving approval and closing the public hearing. Do we have a second?
Yes.
Was there a second? Did I miss it?
Second.
Okay. Moved by Gaio, seconded by Calv. Let's go ahead and call the roll.
The motion moved by Councilmember Giles, seconded by Councilmember Cobb to adopt the resolution and close the public hearing. Councilmember Fife?
No.
Councilmember Gaio?
Aye.
Councilmember Cobb?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Kaplan?
Aye.
Councilmember Reed? Councilmember Reed? Councilmember Taylor? I'm sorry, Pro Tem Tao?
Aye.
Council President Bass?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Would you like to put your vote on the record?
Yes, aye.
President Bass
Aye.
and Chair Taylor?
Aye.
Item 2.2 is approved with a vote of 7 ayes, 1 no, 5.
Great. I believe that concludes our meeting. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, I guess the GAD is adjourned, and now back to Council President Bass.
Thank you. Colleagues, we still have a very lengthy agenda in front of us. I will take one more opportunity to see if there's any motions to adjust our agenda to continue any items from this meeting to a future meeting.
And through the chair, just before that, can you take a motion to reconvene into your special meeting?
Oh, yes. we
So
can do
moved.
that. Second.
Motion to reconvene moved by Councilmember Taylor, seconded by President Bass. Councilmember Fife.
Aye.
Councilmember Gaia.
Aye.
Councilmember Call.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Kaplan.
Aye.
Councilmember Reed.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Pro Tem Tao. Aye. President Bass.
Aye.
Motion is approved with a vote of 8 ayes. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Fife.
Council President Bass, I would like to make a motion to move agenda item 8, the ordinance amending ordinance number 13647, CMS Workplace and Employment Standards Department, to a future council meeting on July 11th, just based on the commentary that we heard from some of our Black contractors that called in, and a little bit of confusion and the cancellation of several of our meetings that we would have with this body. I would ask that we move this agenda item to the July 11th special city council meeting.
Second, if you need that.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Councilmember
And I would,
Taylor.
I would also ask that we get the interim director, Mary Mayberry, to weigh in as well.
Okay, great. Councilmember Taylor, would you mind if we heard from Mary Mayberry first?
That was going to be my recommendation, to hear from her first.
Great. And I believe she is with us.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Mary. When you're
Good
ready.
evening, Council President and members of the City Council. I am in favor of postponing the meeting. I'm postponing the report rather until the July 11th meeting to give the minority contractors an opportunity to weigh in.
Thank you, Ms. Mayberry. Councilmember Taylor?
I don't have anything more to add.
Okay, and I believe that we do need a full vote in order to move this to our meeting on the 11th. So Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Yes, and that was a motion by Councilmember Fife, seconded by Councilmember Tao to withdraw and reschedule this item to the July 11th special city council meeting. Councilmember Fife.
Aye.
Councilmember Gaio.
Aye.
Call.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Kaplan.
Aye.
Councilmember Reed.
Aye.
Taylor.
Aye.
President Pro Tem Tao.
Aye.
And Council President Bass.
Aye.
And that item was approved with 8 ayes to be withdrawn and rescheduled to the July 11th council meeting.
Thank you.
Through the
Okay,
chair, I just want to say thank you to Ms. Mayberry for all of her work on this. I know that she's been working hard.
Thank
to move
you.
it forward.
Thank you.
all right, thank you. That is one item. Les, we still have a lot more at this time. Madam Clerk, I would like to ask you to read in the consent calendar. Actually, if you could hold off, I do see we have a hand up. I want to make sure we hear if we need to hear this first. Bradley Johnson.
Thank you, Council President. We would request that item 2.29 be pulled from the consent calendar and actually eventually scheduled to the July 19th council meeting. As we noted the prior time when this was heard at its first reading, the local measures need to be adopted after the council certifies the election for Measure C, which is not happening at this meeting. So I wanted to get that on, that request on now, if this is the appropriate time.
Okay, and you want to withdraw this item and move it to which meeting?
The July 19th council meeting, the last one of the term. for second reading.
Okay, I do see two other hands up. Let's hear from the city administrator and then the city attorney's office. Administrator Riskin.
Thank you, Madam President. You made reference to this at the start of the meeting. I don't know if it needs to be done here, but we'd also like to move S 2.32 to the July 19th council meeting. So in case you can need a motion and can do that together with the other item, just wanted to remind you of that.
Yes. Okay, let's hear from the city attorney's office, Mitesh Bhakta.
Thank you, President Bass. Once the clerk has read in the consent calendar, I have a very minor technical update to make to item 2.18. So if the clerk could please give me screen share at that time after she is read in the calendar. Thank you.
Yes, we are noting that. Okay. I will make a motion to move item 2.29, to withdraw item 2.29 and move it to the July 19th meeting, and also to withdraw item S 2.32 and move it to the July 19th meeting. Is there a second? Okay, I believe that was Councilmember Gaio. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
And that was a motion by Councilmember President Bass and Councilmember Gaio to withdraw and reschedule item 2.29, the fiscal year 22-23 local measure MN library QZDPD parks Q and measure AA, as well as item S.232 12th Street remainder parcel ENA with East Bay Asian Local Development Corporation to the July 19th City Council agenda on consent. Councilmember Fife.
Aye. Excuse me, Madam Clerk, those two items are on consent and I believe they will remain on consent.
All right, thank you for that correction. On consent, Councilmember Fife.
Aye.
Councilmember Gaio.
Aye.
Call.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Kaplan.
Aye.
Councilmember Reed.
Aye.
Taylor.
Aye.
President Pro Tem Cal.
Aye.
And Council President Bass.
Aye.
Again, item 2.29 and 2.3 S 2.32 will be withdrawn and rescheduled to July 19th on the consent calendar.
Thank you. And we are now ready to read in the consent calendar, Madam Clerk.
Starting with item 2.3, a resolution renewing and continue the city council's declaration of a local emergency due to the existence of HIV and AIDS. Item 2.4, a resolution renewing the city council's declaration of a local public health emergency with respect to safe, affordable access to medical cannabis in the city of Oakland. Item 2.5, a resolution renewing and continue the city council's declaration of a local emergency due to the existence of homelessness. Item 2.6, a resolution renewing and continuing the city council's determination that conducting in-person meetings of the city council and its committees would present imminent risk to attendees' health and electing to continue conducting meetings using teleconferencing in accordance with California Government Code, Section 54953, a provision of AB 361. Item 2.7, a resolution honoring Shanae Franklin Minor for her outstanding service to the city of Oakland as manager of the city's rent adjustment program. Item 2.8, a resolution congratulating Jennifer Logue on appointment as city attorney for the city of Mountain View and expressing profound gratitude for Jennifer's stellar service to the city of Oakland as a deputy city attorney in the litigation division and as supervising attorney for the general government and finance unit in the advisory division of the city's attorney office. Item 2.9, an ordinance amending Oakland Municipal Code, Section 10.36.140, to add the following streets to the list of approved parking meter zones: Bellevue Avenue from Perkins Street to Grand Avenue, Lakeshore Avenue from MacArthur Boulevard to Lake Merritt Boulevard, Lake Merritt Boulevard from East 12th Street to Oak Street and Lakeside Drive, from 17th Street to Jackson Street, and Section 10.36.090 to remove Sundays as holidays in support of districts that would benefit from all week parking meter management, but restricting Sunday meters to be enforced after 12 p.m. and sections 10.36.015 and 10.36.020 to add pay by plate as a meter payment method and adopting appropriate CEQA findings. Item 2.10, an ordinance amending salary schedule ordinance number 12187 to add the full-time classification of Inspector General Program and Performance Audit Manager, the full-time classification of Inspector General Program and Performance Auditor, the full-time classification of Inspector General Policy Analyst, the full-time classification of Family Services Specialist, the full-time classification of Special Activity Permit Technician, the permanent part-time and part-time equivalent classifications of Community Intervention Specialist, the permanent part-time and part-time equivalent classifications of Emergency Medical Tech, and amend the title of the full-time classification of Environmental Services Analyst, Assistant Recycling Program Specialist 1, the title of the full-time classification of Recycling Specialist to Recycling Program Specialist 2, the title of the full-time classification of Municipal Code Enforcement Officer to Special Activity Permit Inspector, the title of the full-time classification of Head Start, Early Head Start Substitute Teacher to Head Start, Early Head Start Associate Instructor, the title of the permanent part-time classification of Head Start, Early Head Start Substitute Instructor, permanent part-time to Head Start, Early Head Start Associate Instructor, permanent part-time, the title of part-time classification of Head Start, Early Head Start Substitute Teacher, part-time to Early Head Start Associate Instructor, part-time, and amend the salary of the part-time classifications of Senior Aid and Temporary Contract Services Employee to ensure compliance with the City of Oakland's minimum wage, and amend the salary of the classification of council member to ensure compliance with the Oakland Public Ethics Commission Charter mandated salary adjustment. Item 2.11, a resolution awarding a construction contract to Raise Electric for Highway Safety Improvement Program, Cycle 9 Foothill Boulevard and MacArthur Boulevard Improvements, project number 1004700, the lowest responsible bidder, in accordance with project plan specifications, state requirements, and with contractors bid in the amount of $1,783,021.25, and adopting appropriate sequel findings. Item 2.12, a resolution authorizing the city administrator to accept and appropriate sustainable transportation equity project grant funds in the amount of $7,665,371.99 to implement the West Oakland STEP program administered by the California Air Resources Board, and enter into a professional services agreement with Oakland Parks and Recreation Foundation as a fiscal agent for the West Oakland Environmental Indicators Project, Urban Biofilter, and the West Oakland Green Initiative in an amount not to exceed $2,884,200.00. Enter into a professional services agreement with the Crucible in an amount not to exceed $364,329.95, and waive the city's competitive request for proposals and qualification selection process, and allocate $2,893,956 in local match, and adopt appropriate sequel findings. Item 2.13, adopt the following pieces of legislation: a resolution approving the fiscal year 21 through 22 annual reports of the Lake Shore Lake Park Business Improvement Management District of 2012, the Jack London Improvement District, the Temescal Telegraph Business Improvement District 2015, the Laurel Business Improvement District 2016, the Koreatown Northgate Community Benefit District 2017, the Oakland Tourism Business Improvement District 2018, the Downtown Oakland Community Benefit District 2018, and the Lake Merritt Uptown Community Benefit District 2018. Advisory boards, and confirming the continuation annual assessment for each said district, and for the Chinatown Community Benefit District 2021, with the exception of the Lakeshore District that is expiring for fiscal year 22 through 23, and levying said assessments, increasing the Jack London District, Temescal District, Koreatown District, Downtown Oakland District, Lake Merritt Uptown District by 5% for the 22 through 23 assessment, and authorizing payment of the city's cumulative fiscal year 22 through 23 fair share assessment in an approximate amount of $389,453.67 for city-owned properties in the Jack London District, the Temescal District, the Koreatown District, the Downtown Oakland District, the Lake Merritt Uptown District, and the Chinatown District, and renewing the agreements with the districts for administration and disbursement of funds. and an Oakland Redevelopment Successor Agency resolution authorizing payment of the Oakland Redevelopment Successor Agency cumulative fiscal year 22 through 23 fair share assessment in an approximate amount of $2,871.20 for one Oakland Redevelopment Successor Agency owned property in the downtown Oakland Community Benefit District, 2018. Item 214, a resolution authorizing the city administrator to finalize and execute a prepaid debit card marketing and processing agreement and a contract purchasing agreement with USIO and a contract purchasing agreement with Clipper in support of the West Oakland Universal Basic Mobility Pilot Project's financial incentive in the amount of 1,000 restricted prepaid debit cards and or Clipper cards for a period of 1 year at a total contract amount of $350,000, provided the necessary spending authority for the contract's 1 year duration, and waiving the advertising, bidding, and the request for qualifications, proposal, competitive selection requirements. Item 215, receive an information report on providing plumbing to interim homeless sites. Item 218, a resolution supporting House Resolution 7910, protecting our kids, which makes various changes to federal firearm laws, including establishing new criminal offenses and expanding the types of weapons and devices that are subject to regulation in order to quell senseless acts of gun violence. Item 217, a resolution celebrating the 50th anniversary of Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972, which seeks to guarantee equality in educational programs and activities regardless of sex, and celebrating the powerful impacts of Title IX since its enactment in 1972, and encouraging additional work to further gender equality in education programs and school-based athletics. Item 218, a resolution amending resolution number 89202, which among other things submitted to the voters at the November 8th, 2022 general municipal election, and ordinance repealing and replacing chapter 5.04 from from the city staff and directing the city clerk to take all necessary actions to prepare for and conduct the November 8th general election. Item 2.9, a resolution authorizing the city administrator to enter into an agreement with the County of Alameda Fire Department for Oakland Fire Department to provide emergency services within the city of Emeryville for the period of July 1, 2022 through June 30th, 2024, and for such services to be compensated in the amount of $437,541 with 2 one-year options to extend the agreement and accept and appropriate the above reference funds. Item 220. A resolution amending resolution number 89241, which allocated funds and authorized affordable housing development loans for new construction projects in a total amount not to exceed $30,561,000 to authorize an additional allocation in an amount not to exceed $7 million and an additional affordable housing development loan for the 2700 International Boulevard project, contingent on funding from the 2022 State Local Housing Trust Fund. Item 221, adopt a resolution accepting and appropriating direct local program distribution, Measure BB funds in the amount of $2,646,058 for fiscal year 22 through 23 for the Alameda County Transportation Commission to provide paratransit services, and awarding agreements for paratransit services for fiscal year 22 through 23 in the amount of $850,000, $600,000, $150,000, $50,000, $25,000, and $100,000, and awarding a grant agreement to the city of Emeryville for paratransit services in an amount of $50,000, and authorizing the city administrator to accept and appropriate any additional direct local distribution funds that may become available from the same funding source for the same purposes for fiscal year 22 through 23, and authorizing the city administrator to increase the award amounts and authorize amendments of aforementioned agreements accordingly with their terms. Item 2.22, a resolution authorizing the city administrator to apply for and accept a state of California standard agreement the amount of $1,976,364 and enter into an agreement number MS 223-01 with the State of California Department of Aging for the Multipurpose Senior Services Program for fiscal year 22 to 23, and waiving the city's competitive procurement process and authorizing the city administrator to procure related goods and award professional services agreements to private entities for fiscal year 22 through 23, and adding 1 FTE case manager, increasing from 0.5 FTE to 1 FTE administrative assistant 1, and increasing 0.80 FTE to 1 FTE case management supervisor in the Human Services Department to meet CDA requirements, and authorizing a contribution from the General Purpose Fund in an estimated amount of $509,601 for central services overhead charges, and authorizing the city administrator to accept and appropriate any additional funds that become available from CDA within the agreement terms of July 1, 2022 through June 30th, 2023 for the same purpose, and amend the standard agreement with CDA to increase the amount. Item 2.23, a resolution awarding grant agreements to 26 nonprofit and public agencies to provide services until June 30th, 2024 to address the impact and reduce consumption of sugar sweetened beverages in a total amount not to exceed $3 million using sugar sweetened beverages distribution tax revenue in the amount not to exceed $1 million from fiscal year 21 through 22 revenues and $2 million from fiscal year 22 through 23 revenues. Excuse me. Item 2.24, resolution authorizing and directing the city attorney to compromise and settle the following claims in the amount in the case of anti-police terror project. Community Ready Corp., Sean Kennedy, Michael Cohen, Michael Cooper, Andrea Constado, Jonathan Farmer, Lindsay Filowitz, Daniel Gatel, Katie Johnson, Brianna Kelly, Jennifer Lee, Ian McDonald, Melissa Mayara, Lindsay Morris, Leah Motley, Nikio Nato, Azizi Ngo, Nicole Puller, Maria Ramirez, Akil Riley, Aaron Rajeski, Tara Rose, Ashwin Rupin, Daniel Sanchez, Christina Stewart, Taya Stewart, Catherine Sugre, Celeste Wong, Kui Chu Zhang, on behalf of themselves and similarly situated individuals versus City of Oakland, OPD, Police Chief Susan Manheimer, Sergeant Patrick Gonzalez, Officer Maxwell Diorso, Casey Font, United States District Court case, CV0386, JCS City Attorney, file X05141 for a total sum of $1,525,000 and no cents to be paid to the following plaintiffs listed in this resolution, and settle the plaintiff's claims for permanent injunctive relief pertaining to crowd control, including multiple requirements regarding the use of chemical agents, multiple requirements for the management of mutual aid agencies, requirements regarding the use of impact munitions, displaying of identifying information, usage of personal digital recording devices, and crowd dispersal methods, training of officers, and a 5-year period of continuing jurisdiction, and to settle the claims for attorney's fees and costs in the amount up to $200,000 and no cents. $1,200,000 and no cents arising from the Oakland Police Department's response to demonstrations May 29, 2020 and June 1st, 2020. Item 2.25, a resolution celebrating Winnie Barzotto's extraordinary work, shaping and leading the Public Ethics Commission and thanking her for 10 years of service. Item 2.26, a resolution urging Alameda County, the state and federal government to provide funding to develop, support a comprehensive and holistic response to the overdose and opioid epidemic in the city of Oakland. Item 2.27, a resolution confirming the reappointment of Yu K. Lee to the Board of Port Commissioners. Item 2.28, a resolution authorizing the city administrator to negotiate, award, and execute a professional services agreement with Interwest Consulting Group in an amount not to exceed $1 million for on-call planning, permit support services on an as-needed basis for a period of 18 months with an option for the city administrator to enter into a contract extension for an additional 6 months in an amount not to exceed $350,000 without returning to City Council, while waiving the city's local small business enterprise program requirements and appropriating $1,350,000 from the Development Services Fund balance to both the contract awarded to the Interwest Consulting Group and City Administrator optional contract extension to provide on-call permit support services on an as-needed basis and making appropriate CEQA findings. Item 2.29 regarding fiscal year local measures M in library QZD, parks Q, and measure AA has been withdrawn and rescheduled to July 19th, 2021. I'm sorry, 22. Can't go back in time. Item 2.30, a resolution confirming the appointment of Jorge Lerma, Kim Johnson, Tiffany Lascato, Jessica Jung, Cynthia Adams, Clarissa Duthard, Deltrina Johnson, Julissa Perez Lima, Dana Salono, Kareem Weaver, Prina Jagannathan, Edgar Rodriguez Ramirez, Melanie Moore, Lang Lantau, Bernadette Zermino as members of the Children's Initiative Citizens Oversight Commission. Item 2.31, a resolution authorizing the following actions. Adopt the fiscal year 22 through 23 workforce development budget, accepting and appropriating $5,896,000 of youth workforce development program funds from the Office of the Governor's California Volunteers to increase youth and young adult employment services and develop pathways into careers in public service, accepting and appropriating $500,000 from the California Workforce Development Board, authorizing grant agreements with service providers competitively selected by the Oakland Workforce Development Board to comprehensive career services, adult career services, and youth career services from Workforce Innovation Opportunity, WIOA, Title I funds, and other funds for fiscal year 22 to 23, authorizing the carryover of unspent fiscal year 21 through 22 funds to contracted service providers in fiscal year 22 through 23, and authorizing the city administrator to apply for and accept grants and contributions for workforce development services beyond the WIOA Title I formula, funding and other budgeted funding sources up to $250,000 per instance with the approval of the Oakland Workforce Development Board without returning to council. Item 2.32 regarding the 12th Street remainder parcel E&A with East Bay Asian Local Development Corporation has also been moved to the July 19th agenda. And I believe that concludes your consent calendar.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And at this time, I do want to call on Mitesh Bhakta from the City Attorney's Office to read in a correction.
Thank you, President Bass. Madam City Clerk, if I have screen sharing ability, I will briefly show a minor typographical correction for the legislation attached to item 2.18. Okay, hopefully everyone is able to see this. This is on page 15 of the legislation. There is a minor correction from 21,100,000 to 20,900,000, and it is reflected here in red line. The clerk's office will be receiving a corrected copy, and that is the only change that needs to be reflected.
Could you actually read the ballot question just so that we are, yes.
Of course. So the changes occurring to the ballot question: shall the measure amending Oakland's business tax rates to create a progressive rate structure that would, 1, impose the highest rates on the highest grossing businesses, 2, increase Oakland's annual tax revenue by an estimated amount? The prior version stated 21,100,000, and now it is stating 20,900,000. And 3, generate approximately 124 million in total annual revenue for municipal services by imposing business tax rates of between 0.05% to 0.55% of gross receipts, and other rates as stated in the measure be adopted.
Thank you. So colleagues, with that correction, I do want to make sure that we are able, when there is a motion, to incorporate that correction into the motion. And at this point, I'll take comments and questions from the council.
Move approval as amended.
Second that.
Thank you. Okay, Councilmember Culp.
Certainly supporting the consent calendar. I just wanted to thank Whitney Barazotto, Chair of the Executive Director of the Ethics Commission for 10 years for the tremendous work she's done. We have a resolution in our packet thanking her, and I just want to acknowledge that on the record. Thank you.
Thank you. I will share a comment that I have. I do want to thank Councilmember Tao for bringing forward item 2.26, which is the resolution in support of a comprehensive and holistic response to the overdose and opioid and epidemic. Glad to be a co-sponsor. I just want to remind the council that back in 2019, we passed a resolution, which I brought forward, regarding overdose prevention programs. So we are on the record, or have been on the record in the past, in terms of supporting overdose prevention programs. And there is a bill that is currently making its way through the state legislature that could potentially allow Oakland to have such a program. So I do hope that we will be able to move forward and make progress on this issue. Councilmember Tout, you're next.
Thank you so much, Council President. Yes, I wanted to speak on item 2.26, the item that I and yourself are bringing forward in regards to the comprehensive approach to the opioid epidemic. I think that this is, this is not a new thing that's happening, but it's definitely becoming more prevalent in in many cities, including San Francisco, here in Oakland. And I want to make sure that we are getting ahead of the numbers that we know may be coming down. And so wanted to pass this resolutions and then start having those conversations with the county to see what they're currently doing and how we can work together regionally, more so, but also here in the city of Oakland. So I hope that my council colleagues will be able to vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Taylor.
Hey there, I'm supportive of the entire consent calendar. I just had one question related to item 2.13, the property bid annual reports. It looks like $2.8 million are being assessed to the city in the downtown Oakland Community Benefit District. Is that correct, or is that just what they're bringing in? Is that the city's assessment, or is that?
To our staff, can you help clarify that question?
This is Eric Simonza from Economic and Workforce. So the question is whether this is
The $2.8 million, is that the overall assessment from all stakeholders, or is that the city's contribution to it?
$2.8 million. So
I believe it might
the
be
amount
property value, but I'll let the staff answer.
Yeah, the amount that the city will be paying in total is $389,453.
Okay.
The 2.8 million, and there's an additional 2,871 that ORSA will be paying. The 2.8 million, I'm trying to recall where that number is, but that is not the amount that the city will be paying. The city will be paying the 389, and ORSA will be paying that other amount.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. That's sufficient.
Okay.
Do
Seeing
we
no,
already have a motion in a second?
we do, I believe, and I believe we can go ahead and call the question. Madam Clerk?
On the consent calendar, moved by Vice Mayor Kaplan, seconded by Councilmember Gaio, with the amendment to item 2.18. Councilmember Fife.
Aye.
Councilmember Gaio.
Aye.
Councilmember Cobb.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Kaplan.
Aye.
Councilmember Reed,
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor,
Aye.
Pro Tem Tao,
Aye.
President Boss.
Aye.
Consent calendar is approved as amended with a vote of 8 ayes. Continuing to item 3, which is your public hearing.
Thank you. We have one public hearing on this agenda. I'll entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
Madam President, before we move forward,
Yes.
I did not hear a public statement, and I apologize for not raising this, but I did not hear a public statement on the consent item that I requested at our Rules Committee meeting for the city attorney to opine on the conflict of interest for myself and the Anti-Police Terror Project and others regarding the case versus the city of Oakland. So I'm asking again to get that clarity on record.
Thank you. To the city attorney, Barbara Parker.
Yes, I'm happy to make the statement. We would not have allowed the vote to take place with Councilmember Fife either in closed session or here if we had not determined that we had no evidence of a conflict. But to summarize, based on information that was published online and the deposition testimony of Turha Ak, who is the co-founder of Community Ready Corps, our office contacted the council member regarding a potential conflict of interest. And this happened before the June 16th closed session at which the council discussed and voted to authorize the settlement of that lawsuit, which is noticed under consent item today, 2.24. Community Ready Corps is one of the plaintiffs in that lawsuit. Information that was published online suggested that Councilmember Fife was or is married to Turha Ak, and that Councilmember Fife was the founder and or CEO of Community Ready Corps. Turha Ak's testimony was that they were never married, that Councilmember Fife is not a member of the board of Community Ready Corps, and that the council member has ongoing involvement with Community Ready Corps as a volunteer. We spoke with Councilmember Fife and she advised our office that she has no financial interest in Community Ready Corps, that her only role in the organization is as a volunteer, and that the council member and Turha Ak have never been married. Based on that information, we had orally advised that Councilmember Fife did not have a financial conflict of interest with respect to participating in the discussion of and voting on the settlement of the reference lawsuit in closed session. And assuming those facts remain the same, that applies to this evening's vote.
Thank you, Attorney Parker. Thank you, Council President Bass, for that clarification.
All right. So our consent calendar is complete. At this time, I will take a motion to open the public hearing that we have on the agenda for the Consolidated Annual Action Plan.
So move.
I'll second that. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
The motion to open the public hearing moved by Councilmember Guile, seconded by President Boss. Excuse me. Councilmember Fife,
Aye.
Councilmember Guile,
Aye.
Councilmember Cobb,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Kaplan,
Aye.
Councilmember Reed,
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor,
Aye.
Pro Tem Tao,
Aye.
President Bass.
Aye.
Public hearing is open with a vote of 8 ayes.
Thank you. First, let's hear the report from the staff of the Housing and Community Development Department.
Thank you so much and good evening to the
I
council.
apologize to interrupt. We did not read the item into record.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Go ahead.
Conduct a public hearing and upon conclusion, adopt the following pieces of legislation: a resolution accepting and appropriating an award for the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development grant funds in the amount of $14,878,176 for the Community Development Block Grant, Home Investment Partnership, Emergency Solutions Grant, and Housing Opportunities for Persons with AIDS Program for fiscal year 22 through 23, and 2, authorizing the city administrator to prepare and submit to the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development an annual action plan for fiscal year 22-23, appropriate $850,000 of the revolving loan programs, income, and any amounts collected to exceed thereof, for housing and rehabilitation activities and other CDBG, eligible activities and projects, authorizing the city administrator to negotiate and execute grant agreements for the fiscal year 22-23 CDBG, home, ESG, and HOPWA programs, authorizing the city administrator to approve CDBG future funding recommendations to be submitted under 22-23 CDBG request for proposal process without returning to council, and authorizing the user of general purpose funds to pay central service overhead charges for the Emergency Solutions Grant and housing opportunities for persons with programs. And 2, a resolution authorizing the city administrator to prepare and submit to the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development a third substantial amendment to the City of Oakland's annual action plan for fiscal year 21 through 22 to update HOPWA allocation for HUD grant years 2018, 2019, and 2020.
Thank you. And we can now hear the report from Greg Garrett.
Thank you again, and good evening to the council chair, council members, and to the public. I am Greg Garrett with the city's Housing and Community Development Department. And before you today, as just stated, are 2 pieces of legislation, one approving the 22-23 annual action plan for the recommended use of the CDBG, home, HOPWA, and ESG grants. The second legislation being an update of HOPWA specific uses that is included in the substantial amendment to the 21-22 annual action plan. This is specific uses of the 2018, 2019, and 2020 HOPWA grants awarded to the city. In 2019, the City of Oakland updated its permanent access to housing or PATH framework, addressing homelessness across the full spectrum of services from prevention and intervention to homeless solutions and housing. In May of 2021, the city adopted the Housing and Community Development, or HCD, Strategic Action Plan, which aligns with the PATH framework, ending family homelessness for Oakland and preventing displacement, creating housing for extremely low-income residents, COVID relief housing services, and creating home ownership opportunities, all with racial equity at the core of this work. The HCD strategic plan is based on 3 priorities, that being protection, preservation, and production. Protection being homeless prevention and housing stability services, preservation, maintenance of current affordable housing inventory, and production affordable housing provided through acquisition, conversion, and new construction. In spring of 2022, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, notified formula grantees of CDBG, home, HOPWA, and ESG funds that funds typically allocated around the month of February for this year would experience delay, further instructing jurisdictions to not submit their annual action plans until HUD had finally made allocations officially announced on their website. On May 13th, 2022, HUD did announce allocations, allocating approximately $7.4 million in CDBG funds to the City of Oakland for various community development activities, approximately $3.4 million for home funds for affordable housing, $3.4 million for HOPWA funds for services and housing for people with HIV and AIDS, and then $651,000 in ESG funds benefiting the city's homeless population for a total of $14.9 million. Today's public hearing is one of 3 citizen participation opportunities for the 22-23 annual action plan. The second is the review of the annual action plan that is posted online as publicly noticed from June 9th, 2022 through July 9th, July 9th, 2022. A virtual community presentation regarding the annual action plan was made on June 30th, and public comments from the 3 public participation opportunities will be made part of the final annual action plan to be submitted to HUD later this month. Per HUD requirement, the annual action plan is due to HUD 60 days after the official HUD funding announcement made on May 13th. That would make the annual action plan due to HUD on July 12th, 2022. All recommended actions included in the annual action plan are in alignment with the City Council adopted strategic action plan, the 5-year consolidated plan, as well as the path framework. Plan activities include new instruction, acquisition, and rehabilitation of 196 affordable housing units, 73 of which to benefit households with extremely low incomes. This is under the home program. Under CDBG, a range of services will benefit over 5,700 Oakland residents and businesses through homeless services, fair housing, economic opportunities, seismic retrofit of multi-unit rental housing, and other community development activities as well. Staff further recommends utilizing $1.57 million in CDBG funds typically set aside for the Community Development District Board allocations to support the acquisition of property for affordable housing and provision of legal assistance for homeless prevention or housing stability services, as one-time resources for such services are soon to expire. For the HOPPER program, the city is awarded as an eligible metropolitan statistical area, including Alameda County and Contra Costa County. $2.3 million will be distributed through a request for proposals process for projects in Alameda County, and $1.2 million will be allocated through Contra Costa County's request for proposal process, both for HIV/AIDS services, housing, short-term rental, mortgage, and utility assistance, and information and referral. For ESG, funds will be used to support shelter operations for homeless families, veterans, persons with HIV/AIDS, seniors, and persons with substance abuse or formerly incarcerated, and other homeless populations. All recommendations in the 22-23 annual action plan are in alignment with the strategic plans put in place and approved by City Council prior. Lastly, per HUD instruction, the third substantial amendment to the 21-22 annual action plan updates the uses of 2018, 2019, and 2020 HOPWA funds. Updated uses by both counties are provided online and include the provision of the services just mentioned above. Again, the annual action plan is due to HUD on July 12th, 2022. Upon City Council approval, this plan will be submitted to HUD for final 5 days. Upon HUD review, HUD will execute CDBG grant agreements with the City of Oakland, allowing the city to carry out planned activities as outlined in the annual action plan. And this concludes my presentation, and I am available for questions and/or comments.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett. And we will take public comments on this hearing item, but first we'll go to the council for any clarifying questions. Councilmember Fife.
Yes, thank you, Chair Bass. So through the chair to Mr. Garrett, can you just clarify for me the 1 million, the approximately 1 million that's being recommended to support acquisition? How will those funds in alternative 1 be facilitated? Like, what is the acquisition plan for those? And then the balance to fund homeless prevention and housing stability, how will those funds be used? Because the total of those 2 amounts, it looks like an alternative 2 would go to set aside for each council district. So I want to understand, just weighing out the 2, how the funds in alternative one how the funds.
And through the chair, I'm not sure if it's my internet that's gone bad or someone else's, but I will attempt to answer that question. I believe I've received the full question. The 1.57 will be used for to support affordable housing acquisitions for such properties such as the Lake Merritt Lodge and or other properties that the city is looking for to increase affordable housing opportunities in the city of Oakland. The other portion of the 1.57 million will be used to support legal services that will prevent Oakland renters from becoming homeless or experiencing displacement as we are coming to a place where we're running out of fund sources that we received for that purpose. And so we realized through the mid-cycle budget, we received, or we're receiving 1.7 million, and this will be put with those funds to provide the services that we deem necessary for Oaklanders.
Thank you for that. My question was, what programs will these funds go to? Will this be another allocation for a local nonprofit, for several nonprofits? Who will facilitate the use of these funds? Like you said, Lake Merritt Lodge, or other places, I assume. So I want to know specifically, are there proposals for how these funds would be utilized? Because I'm trying to weigh out whether I would support alternative 1 or 2, but I need to be clearer on how they'll be allocated and to whom they'll be allocated to.
Absolutely. And through the chair, as far as the services are concerned, it is our plan to utilize existing service providers that are funded currently under the city's emergency rental assistance program, who know the population, who has worked with the population to continue to provide homeless prevention and anti-displacement services. And then as far as the affordable housing projects, we are looking to see where the funds will be best used. And I use Lake Merritt Lodge as an example.
And Director Olatwe's hand is up. So Director, why don't you also chime in here?
Thank you so much. Good afternoon or good evening. Shola Olatwe, Director of HCD. Actually, President Bass, I wondered if we might promote Emily Weinstein, who is our Deputy Director of Community Development, who's been working very closely with Mr. Garrett on this work as well, and to provide some additional context for the council member and others as we go through the questions and comments.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
They are now promoted.
Great, thank you. My name is Emily Weinstein, Deputy Director of Community Development for HCD. Thank you so much to the chair, to the council members. Through the chair to Council Member Fife, to answer your question, the $1.5 million, as Greg mentioned, will have 2 components. The $500,000 would be dedicated to services, homeless prevention, and housing stability services. And we'd be issuing an RFP for those services. Those would be combined with the other resources that we're hoping will be approved through the mid-cycle budget for homeless prevention services. And so would be allocated, kind of pooled together with those other resources towards tenant protections and other homeless prevention services. As Greg mentioned, the partners that have come together around the ERAP funding are a very strong network of partners. And so we imagine through the RFP that many of those same partners will respond to the RFP. In terms of the $1 million at this time, it's not dedicated to a specific project. Greg did mention the Lake Merritt Lodge, since we know that is a project that is of interest to the council, and also in the process of assembling the different funding possibilities. But at this point, it's just a kind of $1 million to have to use as best as we can towards an acquisition of a project that will help relieve some of the homeless population.
Okay, Councilmember Fife, are you complete?
So I just want to be clear, almost. So it looks like the $1 million for the acquisition wouldn't necessarily be the Lake Merritt Lodge. It would be a decision that's made by HCD and perhaps the city administrator's office to find out, to determine the best use of those funds for an acquisition project.
Yes, that's what we're recommending at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Gayo?
Yes, Madam Chairperson, I make a motion to approve staff's recommendation.
Okay, we will entertain the motion once we hear from members of the public during this hearing. So why don't we go ahead, Madam Clerk, and invite members of the public to speak. They will have up to 2 minutes. And for members of the public, again, this is speaking on the public hearing regarding our consolidated action plan.
Thank you for that, President Boss. And as stated by the chair, you'll be given 2 minutes. I have Nick P, Ms. Asado Olavala, and B. Beekman. Nick, you are allowed to unmute yourself and you may begin your 2 minutes once you've unmuted yourself.
I'm sorry, I thought I was going to speak on another topic, so I will pass.
Thank you for that. Moving to the next speaker in the queue. Moment is, excuse me, Ms. Olabala. You have been allowed to unmute yourself and you may begin your 2 minutes when ready for that theme.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Clerk, I'm sorry. I want to reference the document that reports out the predictions for the program for 2022-2023 by race and ethnicity. This report out represents how all data should be reported by race and ethnicity, because it breaks down the races, and then it says 13% of all races having Hispanic ethnicity. It separates race and ethnicity. That's the way you should report out data by race and ethnicity. The problem, though, is for the 2020-2021, 6,746 residents and businesses who receive services, you don't give a race and ethnicity breakdown of how those services were distributed. I wish that would have happened. There is, the way this is done, there should be no reason why we don't have the plumbing situation solved at Lake Merritt and at 3rd and Peralta with all of this money, because the money for community development blocks clearly allows you to use that money for homelessness assistance. Emergency Solution Grant allows you to help with the operation and provide assistance and services related to homelessness. It also allows you for the screening, training, referral, and placement of applicants who are homeless for employment. And with all of this money, why do we not have hot meals that are supposed to be given to those individuals at Lake Merritt tiny homes, and why we don't have the plumbing in place for those showers?
I do apologize, Ms. Olavala, your 2 minutes are up. The next speaker, B. Beekman, you are allowed to unmute and begin.
Hi, Blair Beekman here. Thanks a lot for this item. To offer my just shallow 2 cents, I really try to offer a good public comment, but gosh darn it, I'm just so one-dimensional and shallow. I wish I wasn't, but to offer my public comment, it's my feeling for this sort of item that we, in this new era of COVID, we have just been given money that from the state and federal level, the subsidy programs that are developing in this era of COVID have been pretty amazing and impressive. And they have been a lot with the specific intent to really, really address homeless and unhoused issues that we know how to do, and we've been practicing for years, but we simply haven't been given the money to do it. And now we have the money. And so it's really a matter of how to really get our act together. In San Jose, you know, I'm based in San Jose, so sorry for and thank you for my references to San Jose. They have a plan to really address housing families, almost all families, by 2025. That can be with this sort of subsidy planning we have at this time. You know, how can subsidies, you know, really work to house people who need it? Because in the past, we put them into housing, unhoused people, they'd be there for a month or two, and it wasn't out of any fault of theirs or laziness. It's just hard to afford continual housing, and they need the subsidy help. So we're planning these efforts now. Good luck how you really can work on this thing now and really get it together, and not be afraid that as community and the public and politicians, we can talk about the process of subsidy openly with each other. Thank you.
Thank you for our comments, and that was the last public comment.
Thank you. Okay, so Councilmember Gaio, if you don't mind restating your motion, I believe that was to close the public hearing and to accept or to adopt the resolution as recommended by staff. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, thank you. Yes.
Okay, and that would include alternative 1, which is the staff recommendation.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Vice Mayor Kaplan?
Yes, just following up on the prior comments from my colleagues, you know, we have been pushing hard for significant new investments that would actually help get people off the streets. And, you know, we've seen successes with things like the Lake Merritt Lodge. We've seen the need for things like plumbing at some of the interventions. And each time we've been pushing for these things, we've been told like there's no money. And here we have money and we're being told we have no idea what it will be used for. And so I'm concerned about that we aren't having a commitment to matching available funds to these urgent and identified needs. And so, you know, I would feel more comfortable if there would be a council approval of where the money is actually going. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me call on Administrator Risk, and then we'll go back to the council members. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to clarify, you know, we have heard repeatedly from the council, including I think the Vice Mayor has been one of the leading voices on this, that we should be pursuing acquisition opportunities. So the staff recommendation here is to provide some funding that would allow us to be opportunistic if and when such opportunities arise, such that we could leverage this $1 million. You know, $1 million alone is not going to do much, but it may help leverage an opportunity. Should we ultimately identify such opportunity, any sort of acquisition would have to come back and be approved by council. So I did want to clarify that. I think the earlier question was, would this be a determination made by HCD and the administration? And we would certainly be identifying the opportunity, but ultimately the approval of the expenditure of those funds would have to come back to council unless it was something you've already approved. And then the other $500,000 is for exactly for expansion of exactly the kind of services that you supported both in the mayor's proposed mid-cycle budget as well as your own augmentation of it in terms of support services. This is what we're proposing would be, we think, that the best use of this $1.578 million. If the council chooses to do otherwise, we gave you different options. The way the resolution is written, it doesn't specify this breakdown of the 1.57. So if the council would rather a different breakdown of that, that's certainly that's certainly your call. But this is our proposal, and put it forward in the spirit of following past council direction.
Thank you. So just to be clear, the specific sites to be acquired would in fact come back to council.
Yeah, we don't have independent authority to acquire property or buildings. So anything that we would be recommending for the use of these funds, unless it was contributing to something that was already approved, would have to come back to council.
And in terms of the portion that would be for the interventions and things like the plumbing, what would be the approval process for that component?
So that is not what we're currently recommending the use of these funds for. That is something that I would ask HCD to advise as to whether those would be eligible uses for these funds. What we were proposing is the 509, little under $510,000 would go to augment the $1 million that was in our proposed mid-cycle adjustment, and then the additional, I think you added, I don't remember if it was 750 or $1 million in the end last Thursday for tenant support services, legal services, financial services, et cetera. And that would be done through a competitive process.
Thank you.
Okay, Director Olatoye, do you want to speak first before we hear from the other council members?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, Administrator Riskin said exactly what I was going to say, so thank you.
Okay. Next is Councilmember Fife.
Yes, thank you, President Bass. I guess through the chair to Director Riskin, I would like to have either more clarity on the suggestions for the, well, I'll just say that there was confusion around the mid-cycle budget process because there were allocations that were being suggested to homeless services and legal services. Well, specifically legal services for people facing eviction. But the issue was that a lot of our tenants support groups were saying that there should be a differentiation between Keep Oakland Housed and Oakland Housing Secure. And so there was some confusion around that. So I want to be clear about where this 509, little under 510 would go in terms of that organization. And you're saying it would go through a competitive process. But the reality is we hear oftentimes with some of our public speakers is that these RFPs go to the people who know how to engage the city process. They know who to talk to, they know how to get in the queue. And so it's not terribly competitive because it's the same organizations over and over again. So that's why the process is challenging for me, because it really keeps a lot of money in the hands of just a small few. And I think that's a problem. So I would just need to either have more, I think that I would be better. I would feel better about it if alternative 2 was the approach, unless there was more clarity around equity and expanding the pool of individuals or organizations who offer these services.
Thank you, Councilmember Fife. I know there's other hands in the queue. I will maybe jump in here to build off of what you are sharing. In terms of the staff recommendation alternative 1, I am potentially supportive of the 1 million plus for acquisition, the $509,000, rather than going through a competitive process because there is so much need. I would be interested in having that support Oakland Housing Secure. I think a number of those organizations in that coalition are working effectively with tenants who are potentially at risk of becoming homeless. And we could potentially make a motion to direct the balance of the funding, the $509,000, towards that organization. So there is more clarity and it does hit the streets sooner than
I would
an
second that, Council President Bass, if you made that motion.
Okay, so there isn't a second yet to Councilmember Gayo's motion. And so my motion would be to adopt the staff, the resolutions recommended by staff with the addition that the 509,635,000 be directed to Oakland Housing Secure.
I'll second that again.
Thank you. Let's go to Councilmember Taylor.
Yeah, I just like to hear from. Whoa, sorry. Sorry about that. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay. So I think I understand the motion that's on the floor. I would like to hear from HCD staff. It sounds like we are directing it towards one specific provider through a grant allocation. Is that what the recommendation is? It's a direct allocation versus an RFP. I'm just trying to make sure I understand what what we're doing on top of staff's recommendation.
So rather than the 509,635 being allocated through a competitive process, it would have that amount be allocated to a collaborative called Oakland Housing Secure, which is currently working to prevent tenant displacement and to provide legal services.
So for my benefit and those of maybe the public who's watching, is there I guess maybe a little bit more information on the organization or collaborative?
Through the chair, if I may, to answer the question, again, this is Shola Olatre. And just to be clear, I'm understanding that the motion on the floor is for these funds to not go through a competitive process and to simply be granted to the, I believe, the 4 partners who are currently contracted as part of Oakland Housing Secure. Is that correct, Madam President?
Correct.
Okay, so to Councilmember Taylor, Oakland Housing Secure was an effort, frankly, to get some additional resources to support the very important work of eviction prevention and some small emergency one-time grants to people, residents who were experiencing housing instability. There was also a very small amount of funds that went to support homeowners who were also experiencing some type of mortgage or financial crisis. That had been the primary city-funded efforts around, let's call it, rental support and emergency rental assistance pre-federal COVID relief funds. Then when the COVID relief fund sort of flooded into the city, we both augmented that Oakland Housing Secure Keep Oakland House network, and honestly, they are many are one of the same. Some of the same partners are part of both of those efforts, and we augmented it to include more community groups, more in more neighborhoods, so it's such that there are 7 partners who are now providing that important federal emergency rental relief, as well as the ongoing, call it housing stabilization supports to families. We recognized, our partners recognized, that when federal money went away, we did not have a source of funds to support those activities going forward. We came to you with a proposal to sort of squirrel away or allocate the money that is in front of you today. The administration and mayor put forth $1 million, and then this body put forth, I believe it was $750,000. In total, our thought was those resources would be competitively bid out to support legal and legal support and tenant and eviction prevention, along with that housing stabilization supports. That was the plan and expectation for these resources, sir. Happy to answer any other questions.
Thank you. And I will just add, having worked in the nonprofit sector, it does take a lot to compete apply for these type of opportunities. And I know I would like to stretch our dollars more and have our organizations who assist tenants and property owners to stretch their time more by perhaps not going through that extensive process when they're already partnering with the city. So that's part of the intent behind my motion. Okay, let's hear from Councilmember Reed.
Thank you. Through the chair to Director Olatoye. Can you share with the public how the proposed $500,000+ would be shared through the partnering organizations? What does that look like with allocation from the city into the 7 organizations, with how they tap into and secure those funds to help the tenants and the homeowners?
Thank you for your question, and through the chair to Councilmember Reed. Again, the staff proposal that was in front of you was that those resources would be pooled into the sort of now larger fund that would be competitively bid out. We would expect that there would be at least 30 to 40% of those funds, set aside for program and administration and the important tenant and legal supports that those organizations would be providing to residents, and then the balance be provided in small one-time emergency grants. This is, first and last month's rent, sometimes assistance in paying an overdue utility bill, etc. We had not, and it is not before you today, kind of the dollar breakdown, but that really was that's the intent was resources to support the important legal services work, and then resources for those small one-time emergency grants. And that really sort of came from the important feedback that we received from our community partners as to what worked for them in the administration of these types of grants.
Thank you. Is there a report that is available that shows where we've distributed that money in times past to each of those partnering organizations? I'm just curious to see where that allocation has gone in the past. Grateful for the support of these organizations. And I'm just curious now, as we're looking to potentially allocate this money, to see just how it's distributed amongst the 7 organizations and their support out into the community.
Thank you, through the chair to the council member. I just want to be very clear about what we're talking about, right? Oakland Housing Secure was the sort of COVID tenant assistance, emergency rental assistance that the city provided. And yes, we can provide that information to you, Councilmember Reed. Your question about the 7 partners that are now part of the federally funded Keep Oakland Housed emergency rental assistance program. Yes, there's a monthly deck that is updated. I believe we shared that with your staff, and happy to share that with you again in terms of not only how, and this body approved their grants, but also the performance of each of those organizations, who we've served, the average amount of money that has been put out, where those dollars have been sent, and so happy to share that with you.
Okay, let's keep going here. Councilmember Gallo.
Yes, to the administrator, Ms. Olatoye. So what you're saying is the group that is being recommended, you highly recommend, and you have an ongoing evaluation of their performance and meeting the needs of the public?
Thank you for your question, through the chair. There is a report, there is a grant report for Oakland Housing Secure, which predated the federal coronavirus emergency rental relief program, which is the 7 partners that has since been referenced, which is not actually up for sort of debate or up for, is not in front of you as for action today. There is a report as well, a monthly report that we produce on how we are serving and distributing the federal funds that those 7 partners are responsible for getting out into the community. And we would be happy to provide that as well.
But so I think there's a recommendation to already direct that resources to an organization without having to go out to bid. I mean, that's what I heard, that we were going to put it out to bid. But some of my colleagues, I said, well, why go out to bid when we have this body in place? Let's just give the money to them.
Okay, we've got a lot of hands up. There is a motion and second on the floor, so I do want to keep us moving. We still have a lot of items here.
So can you clarify your motion though? Are you saying give directly the money without going out to bid?
Yes, that's correct. And let me call on the city attorney here to see if they have something to add. Go ahead, Celso Ortiz.
Yes, we wanted further clarification because it sounds like the Councilmember 5's motion would not be within the scope of the notice of this item. And so we don't see that in the 6th part of the resolution that's before you. So we're questioning that it's really been properly noticed.
Okay, so there was an alternative 1 and an alternative 2, and so it's not possible to modify the alternative 1 to have a portion of that go directly to a group that we are already partnering with. Is that correct, Mr. Ortiz?
It would appear so, because it's not really within the scope that as was noticed.
Okay. Let's just do a round to hear everyone's comments, and then I do want to try to close this out so we can keep our agenda moving. Let me see what order you all are in. Councilmember Taylor, and then Greg Garrett, and then Councilmember Kolb, and then Administrator Riskin.
Yeah, I was still wanting to make sure that I understood which organizations we're talking about. So I looked up Housing Secure, Oakland Housing Secure, and see 7 partnering organizations, but that's not the ones we're talking about. So what, I guess I just wanted to know the list of the organizations that we're all talking about. In the collaborative that we're proposing to go to, which we might be able to actually directly allocate to anyways, based on noticing.
Okay.
Through the chair, is that a question you'd like me to answer?
You can go ahead and answer that. Go ahead. Yes.
Okay.
Please.
Through the chair to the council member, we're not recommending, just to be clear, the staff recommendation is not a direct allocation to any existing groups. We proposed to allocate these funds for a particular use, and that we would then actually have a competitive process this summer. There are several organizations, some who participated in Oakland Housing Secure, some who are part of our more expanded federally funded emergency rental assistance program, for whom I'm sure they would apply if a RFP was submitted, because they've been doing this work. So if you were to ask me right now, which organizations am I recommending this funding to go to, I don't think we could say that for sure. But we believe that these dollars should be used for legal supports and housing stabilizations for families, because the federal dollars are effectively exhausted.
Thank you. And then just to kind of close out my comments, it seems to me like we should move forward within what's noticed. And I'm not quite sure. It seems as though we're limited in what we can choose. And option 1 seems to be the path that we were headed down. So just throwing that out there, I'm not sure who's going to make an alternate motion that is legally allowable.
Yes, I am noting that. Let's keep going through our queue. We have Greg Garrett next.
Thank you. And through the chair, I just wanted to bring up that procurement for over $500,000 would require a competitive process. So we couldn't just allocate to an agency. We would definitely have to go through a competitive process in order to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett. And that is due to the federal restrictions. Is that correct?
Yes, federal restrictions for CDBG.
Okay. All right. Well, given that, I will withdraw my my motion, and let's keep going through the queue here. Councilmember Kolb.
No, I was going to ask that very question to the staff about the federal requirements, but it sounds like that's settled. So I think we should just move forward with the staff recommendations, my suggestion. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, so we are back to a motion with the staff recommendation, and that is alternative 1.
I'll second the motion on the table.
Okay, so we're back to Councilmember Gaio's motion with a second from Councilmember Kolb. Okay. Seeing no other hands up, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
On the motion moved by Councilmember Gaio, seconded by Councilmember Cobb to approve the staff recommendation. Councilmember Fife,
No.
Councilmember Gaio,
Aye.
Councilmember Cobb,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Kaplan,
Aye.
Councilmember Reed,
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor,
Aye.
Pro Tem Tao, Pro Tem Tao,
Aye.
President Boss.
Aye.
Motion passes with a vote of 7 ayes, 1 no, 5. I'm sorry, was that motion to also to close the public hearing?
It was originally, yes.
Thank you. Going to item 4, which is not used because the minutes were approved at the last meeting. Going to item 5, or report of final decisions made during closed session and disclosure of non-confidential closed session discussion.
Okay, let's hear from the City Attorney's Office, Amadis Sotelo.
Good evening to the chair. This is Amadis Sotelo with the City Attorney's Office, and there were no final decisions or discussions to report out.
Thank you. Okay, we now have 3 non-consent items that are not ballot related, and then we have a number of items that are not ballot related, and then we get to our ballots. And if I may, Vice Mayor Kaplan, are you willing to chair just for a little bit to give me a break through the next few items?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Just to confirm, in terms of any changes as we transition, we just finished 3. So was there any other items being moved or changed? I see we have a great deal of items remaining, and there's been some discussion about some of them being put over. So
Right, so we are now on item 6. Then we go to item 7. Number 8 has been withdrawn to the meeting on the 19th. And then number 9, and then on to our ballot related items.
all righty. Yes, absolutely. Thank you for your fabulous chairing, Madam President.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, is item 8 to the 11th or the 19th?
Oh, I'm sorry, I misspoke.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, I misspoke, sorry.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Madam Chair or Madam Clerk, are we at a time where we need to vote to extend the meeting? I'm not sure about that.
We sure do.
Yeah, we're going past it, but
We sure do. So yes, Mr. Call, were you wishing to make such a motion?
Actually, the printed agenda says midnight. So
the chair, that's old stock language, your rules.
Okay,
Just
all
say
right.
6 hours.
I'll move we extend the meeting per our rules.
Is there
I'll
a second?
second
Okay, we have a motion, a second to extend the meeting. Please call the roll.
Well, the motion to extend moved by Councilmember Cobb, seconded by President Boss. Councilmember Fife,
Aye.
Councilmember Gaio,
Aye.
Councilmember Cobb,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Kaplan,
Aye.
Councilmember Reed,
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor,
Aye.
Pro Tem Tao,
Aye.
President Boss.
Aye.
Motion to extend is approved with a vote of 8 ayes.
Thank you very much. And now, Madam Clerk, we may go to item 6.
Item 6, a resolution awarding a construction contract to Pacific Trenchless, the lowest responsive and responsible bidder in accordance with project plans and specifications for the sanitary sewer sub-basement 83-403 rehabilitation with contractor's bid for an amount not to exceed $5,436,460 and adopting appropriate secret findings.
Thank you very much. Let us start with the staff report, please.
And Madam Chair, are you requesting a brief staff report?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Call. Did you wish to make a motion?
No, just a brief staff
Okay.
report.
Yes, to staff, a brief staff report, please. Let's put 2 minutes on the clock just to help encourage the brevity. Thank you. Please proceed.
Go ahead, Wen.
Yes. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, Madam Chair, council members, and members of the public. My name is Wen Chen from Public Works, and project 1091 sanitary sewer rehabilitation project is part of the city's sanitary sewer rehabilitation capital improvement program. And this project features close to 4 miles of sanitary sewer pipelines and associated maintenance holes, rehabilitation, and sewer lateral reconnections. And the project was advertised in April. Two bids received in middle of March, and the compliance analysis was completed in early April, and both bids are in compliance, and we obtained Public Works Committee approval to go to the council directly on June 6th, and then we provided a briefing to Councilmember 5 and Councilmember Powell on June 22nd, and upon approval, the project will be constructed starting from September to February next year. So that recommend that a resolution awarding the construction contract to Pacific Trenchless, which is the lowest responsive and responsible bidder in accordance with the project plan and specs for this project, and with a total of $5,436,460 and adopting appropriate California environmental quality findings. That concludes the report, and I'm ready for any questions.
Thank you very much, and good job staying within the allotted time, and thank you for the report. First up is Councilmember Gallo.
Yes, I make a motion to approve staff's recommendation.
Second.
Thank you very much. We have a motion and a second. Seeing no other hands in the queue, Madam Clerk, please call the roll. Thank you.
Welcome on item 6, moved by Councilmember Gallo, seconded by Councilmember Taylor to approve the staff recommendation. Councilmember 5. Councilmember 5. Councilmember Gallo.
Aye.
Councilmember Cobb.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Kaplan.
Aye.
Councilmember Reed.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Pro Tem Tao.
Aye.
President Boss.
Aye.
Item 6 is approved with a vote of 7 ayes, 1 absent, 5. Item 7. An information report from the city administrator on all youth employment programs within the city of Oakland, including the total number of positions or placements for the current year, funding sources, as well as plans and efforts to expand the number of youth participants, further clarify the application process for young people, creation of employment opportunities within the city departments, and securing private funds to support the growth of youth employment in our city.
Thank you so much for this. This was an item that I requested together with Councilmember Fife as part of an effort to strengthen our youth employment programs. We do know that providing jobs and economic opportunity and just positive opportunities of where to spend their time for our young people has many long-term benefits, not only for their own lives, but also for the surrounding community as well. And this is something that has gone up and down over the years in Oakland, but I think it's very important to continue the work to strengthen our programs for jobs for our young people. And so we'll have the administration is invited to give the report.
Good evening. This is Sophia Navarro, Executive Director of the Oakland Workforce Development Board. So I know that in the interest of time, I do want to be mindful. I did have a short presentation prepared, but at this point, I'm open to just answering questions on the report that was provided with the follow-ups that City Council had requested. So I can jump into the report if you'd like me to, but I also know that we're pressed on time.
Thank you for that. So you do have a PowerPoint?
Yes, I have a quick PowerPoint if you'd like me to just share my screen.
Can you do it in 2 minutes?
Yes, I could skip through it if you'd like. I can definitely do that.
Well, or if it's more helpful to people, we could ask to have the PowerPoint uploaded as an info memo so that people could read it on the public website more leisurely. Mr. Administrator, can you arrange to have the PowerPoint uploaded as a public info memo on the website?
Yes, we can do that.
Okay, why don't we do that, and then you can give us sort of the brief update in terms of where we're at with our numbers and the efforts to expand the program and ease the application process.
Okay, great. I can definitely do that. Thank you, Councilmember, Vice Mayor, sorry. So real quickly, where we're at with numbers, one of the things that we shared in the report is really an overview of the citywide efforts taking place. And so what we shared was the different departments that are conducting summer programming, which gets us to at least about 1,800 youth employment opportunities for individuals, for young people. So those departments are OPW, it's also DVP, OFCY, and then through our efforts through OWDB, through our Californians for All Youth Workforce Grant, which we're calling Oakland Forward. In addition to our WIOA Youth, we're able to reach that about 1,800 number. And so again, that's citywide through different departments. And then our efforts through OWDB collectively are roughly about serving about a little over 500 young people. So again, our efforts and our intention is that moving forward for the upcoming years, we are looking at ensuring that we are collaborating our efforts with citywide departments so that come next year, we are better coordinated and able to make sure that we're getting ahead of this so that young people have the opportunity to have employment in the summer and year round. So the other piece that I just wanted to share is that through the revenue sources, which was one of the questions that was asked, collectively through, as I mentioned, we received a state funding from California's for All Youth Workforce Grant. Those of the 5.9 million that we received, 3.4 million is going towards the summer and year-round efforts. Out of WIOA Youth, about 2.4 million is going towards private fundraising, which staff have worked with to try to get fundraising for summer employment. About 100,000 came in for that. Measure HH sugar sweetened beverage tax, about 400,000, and then in collaboration with OFCY, 525,000. So and OWDB for these efforts are about 6.9 million. And then to touch on the efforts to expand. So we are, again, collaborating and working closely with other citywide departments in addition to our current providers to make sure that we are getting the word out about these opportunities. Just to give you a quick, brief overview of where we're at right now with our efforts. So recruitment is currently underway. Over 500 youth have submitted applications. Summer orientations have begun. Job readiness training has started, and over 100 employers have submitted orders thus far. And that just continues to grow overall. I'm also happy to just share that what we've done
I know one of the questions was around the application. So given where we're at this point, providers have already been actively doing outreach. And so for next year, we are planning to look into a coordinated application that you just submit that and it goes to providers. But for now, the best approach was to direct young people to the organizations that are providing this service, because every organization has a slightly different onboarding process and orientation process. So we felt it was best to connect them directly to individuals at the organizations that are providing these services. And our efforts continue to, our efforts are continuing to ensure that we're getting, more fundraising going for the summer and year-round efforts. So I'll leave it at that and answer any additional questions, but I know I kind of just ran through that real quickly.
No, thank you so much for that. And as I know, you joined us fairly recently. So as we look ahead to the future, I hope we'll continue to look to expand in-house opportunities in parks and rec, and improving our public spaces. And also just, if you could review, ahead of the coming year, the history in terms of how it was that the prior mayoral administration was able to successfully do much more fundraising than we've seen in recent years. And so I think that's an area that warrants looking into, so that we can re-strengthen the fundraising and the partnerships to expand the number of jobs, as well as you've already mentioned, obviously the work on making the application process more seamless for the young people, that's something that you're looking at already. So thank you for that. To my colleagues, this is not an action item today. This is an informational report. I'll just check if there's any other questions from my colleagues. Councilmember Fife.
Yes, through the chair to Ms. Navarro, where do individuals, young people go to find this application? I know you said next year there'll be a coordinated application, but where do people go for an application now and for the year-round jobs that will be made available through this process?
Right. So for the summer, individuals can go to www.oakland.ca.gov/WDB. If they go to that, they will find our youth summer programming, and there, we don't have an actual application on our website. We have the listing of the providers with the contact person and their information, their email and their phone number for them to contact, so that they can directly connect with the organization. So we do not have the application online, again, just because everyone's application is a little bit different. But what we are looking to do, and then as a result of today's city council meeting and approval of the year-round efforts and the contracts, we are going to update our website to ensure that we have the listing of all the providers that are being awarded for the funding. And so that information will be online as well.
Okay, and I purchased a website to make it easier. So I purchased a domain that says Oakland Youth Jobs. I think we should probably utilize something that makes more sense and is more, it's more in alignment with what we're trying to propose for young people. But we can have more of a conversation about that offline.
Absolutely, for sure. Thank you, Councilmember.
No, thank you so much for doing that. And I would ask if staff can please follow up on that, because people say they're having great difficulty finding and accessing applications, and the notion that an applicant should have to track down separate processes and separate contacts through multiple places is going to be a barrier to entry for many of the people, who we most need to be reaching and aren't. So I'm looking forward to that getting remedied going forward. Thank you. And thank you, Councilmember Fife, for doing that. Next up is Councilmember Reed.
Thank you, Ms. Navarro, through the chair, for this highlight and the work that you've provided. We're excited to have you on the team. I know that one of the challenges that we've discussed with the department is the need for staff. And so I wanted to just, through the chair, confirm the number of staff vacancies outside of the position. I know that we proposed through our office in the mid-cycle for program analysts that we understood would fund a temporary program analyst in your department to support just expanded program design for these youth workforce services, including marketing and outreach to engage and recruit more youth to our city employment programs. That is one position that I'm aware of, but can you share more, as your report alluded to, staff vacancies and the support that's needed to dedicate the management and design of programs to engage more youth? That's one question.
Through the chair to Councilmember Reed, thank you for the question. So when I came on board February 2022, there were a staff of 3, and that included myself. So since then, we have added an additional staff person to our team. So we're a team of 3, and then we have the assistance of an administrative assistant. So technically a team of 4, or sorry, 5 now. So administrative assistant, a program analyst, and 2 program analysts, 3, and myself. And then the vacancies right now, we have 2 program analysts, 2 positions that are vacant, and an additional PA3 position, program analyst 3 position, that is dedicated to this state funding that I mentioned, that we're calling Oakland Forward. So that position will be essential in, designing. Right now, we're covering all pieces and everyone's stepping up. So I'm greatly appreciative of the staff for all that we've been able to accomplish in the last 4 months with our small team. So that's currently the status of our vacancies.
Thank you. I'll continue to advocate for that position that we lifted up. And through the chair, if you could, Mr. Varel, share, I see the number of positions that we filled for placement. Are those the total budgeted versus field? Or are those filled based on how much funding we've been able to secure? I know we've talked about wanting to ensure at least 100 more youth jobs, and I'm not sure if the funding has come in for that, or if this funding just represents the money that we've had to allocate towards those positions.
Yeah, so that number of 1,800 actually represents the efforts of different city departments. So DVP has its own allocation for its own programs. Oakland Public Works, and they have their team, Oakland Initiative, right? So every department has their own allocation for funding that lead towards this 1,000, a little over 1,800 numbers. For OWDB, the Oakland Workforce Development Board, we have a little bit more control of those positions because that's what we manage mostly. And we collaborate with the different departments on what their efforts are, but again, separate funding sources from our division. So with our funding sources, we're a little over 500 young people being served through We Owe a Youth dollars, the Oakland Forward funding, and the OFCY and Oakland Workforce Development Board funding that was just approved last council meeting, if that makes sense.
Thank you. And through the chair, just the last question. I know in our equity analysis, we state the target zip codes that we'd like to get more participation of youth. Do we have a report that states for the positions that have been filled, those zip codes that have been served with our youth? Is that available at a later date, or is that available somewhere to access now?
That could be available at a later date. We did make sure that during our RFP proposals that we did call out those were our priority population areas and locations. So we did make that call out, and we made sure that our providers are focusing their efforts on those priority zip codes. And we can, sorry, Councilmember, and we can definitely provide a report of the results of that as the summer activities complete.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And so again, this is an informational item. I think we've heard that there are some important areas for follow-up, including the website, more positions, and more ease of coordination of application. Seeing no further hands in the queue, is there a motion to receive the report? And that is along with the direction that the PowerPoint will be uploaded as an info memo so that everyone can read it at their leisure.
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion by Fife, seconded by Gallo to receive the report. May call the roll.
On the motion, moved by Councilmember Fife, second by Councilmember Gallo to receive and file this report. Councilmember Fife.
Aye.
Councilmember Gallo.
Aye.
Councilmember Cobb.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Kaplan.
Aye.
Councilmember Reed.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor. Councilmember
Aye.
Taylor. Pro Tem Tao.
Aye.
Council President Boss.
Aye.
Report is received and filed with a vote of 8 ayes.
Thank you so much. Item 8 has been agreed to be deferred to the next meeting. And so we may go to item 9.
Item 9, receive an information report regarding city's compliance with the Public Records Act settlement in Scott Morris, Sarah Bell Lynn, Brian Kranz, Michael Katz, and Oakland Privacy versus City of Oakland Police Department, Susan Manheimer in her official capacity, and Ed Riskin in his official capacity.
Thank you so much. We may have the report. Thank you.
Thank you. This is Cynthia Stein from the City Attorney's Office. I'll make this very quick since I know Council has the report. Just in very quick summary, this is the lawsuit filed by journalists on behalf of a class of individuals who alleged that they had received or had not received responses to requests under the Public Records Act for Oakland Police Department records. The city entered into a proposed settlement last fall that was noticed to a class of affected individuals. No one objected to that settlement, and the court finalized that in March of this year. There are two, so the settlement has been in effect since March. There are two elements to it, two major components to it. One is the sort of backwards looking, clearing the backlog of pending requests for Oakland Police Department public records that were pending at the time the settlement was approved. And the second piece of it is moving forward in agreement to a number of measures designed to ensure that the city responds to requests for OPD records expeditiously moving forward. And it also requires a report of the first 2 months of the settlement period, which is the why we are presenting to this council today. So just sort of the report has the summary, but essentially the city is in compliance, there's substantial compliance with every element of the settlement. As far as the backlog goes, at the time that the suit was filed, plaintiffs alleged there were around 5,000 pending requests for OPD records that were pending. And at the time of the settlement, that had dwindled down to a bit over 450. And in the first 2 months, the OPD cleared, or the city cleared about 38% of those, bringing it down to around 282. That is on pace to meet the demands of the settlement. For requests for police personnel records relating to misconduct that are disclosable under SB 1421, those were categorized separately. And with respect to those, there were about 123 requests pending at the time of the settlement. The city has produced over 500 documents in those first 2 months and has produced at least some responsive documents in response to about 20% of those pending requests, and the city has a little bit longer to produce those, but we also expect that we're on track to meet that backlog demand as well. Finally, with respect to the forward-looking provisions, in the time period that we were reporting on, OPD received about 950 public records requests. So it just gets a sense of the volume that the city is dealing with, and really performed quite well. Is responding on an average of 1 to 2 days for sort of the non-SB 1421 requests, and in an average of approximately 2 weeks for the SB 1421 police personnel requests. It is estimating that it will produce documents in about a couple of weeks after getting the request, and then it's actually meeting its own estimated deadline approximately 97% of the time. So we are meeting, or at least substantially meeting all of the benchmarks that we set, and we think we're in good shape to be in full compliance with the terms of the settlement. And I'm happy to answer any questions. And we have Chief Armstrong is here from OPD. I think he's here. he may be in transit right now, but he's been online, and I believe is here. Also, Deputy Director of Human Services Kiana Suttle, and Assistant Chief Darren Allison, as well as obviously representatives of the City Attorney's Office.
Thank you very much for that report. Colleagues, are there any questions at this time? Seeing none, is there a motion to receive the report?
So moved.
Second.
It's a motion by Reed, seconded by Gallo to receive the report. We may call the roll.
On the motion to receive and file the report, moved by Councilmember Reed, seconded by Councilmember Gallo. Councilmember Fife.
Aye.
Councilmember Gaio,
Aye.
Councilmember Cobb,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Kaplan,
Aye.
Councilmember Reed,
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor,
Aye.
Pro Tem Tao,
Aye.
President Boss.
Aye.
Item is received and filed with a vote of 8 ayes. Are we going to item 10 next?
Thank you so much, colleagues. So let me just take a process check. It is now after 10 p.m. I know we've been going for a great many hours, and there was some discussion earlier in the day about whether we would look at the measures collectively on the 11th. So let me just check in and also check back with our council president process-wise on where you want to go from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, for chairing and giving me a little bit of a break. We do have 4 more ballot items plus 1 policy, which is related to one of the ballot items. And it is my desire to have some level of discussion so that we can discuss, debate, and also hear any amendments so that if these are moved to the 11th, we also have more information and the public does as well. So I know it's really late. I know some of you might have other time constraints, but I do want to encourage us to maintain our quorum and give these ballot measures a fair hearing. City Attorney Parker?
Yes, Madam President, for your consideration, you could continue this meeting to tomorrow when people are fresh. I don't know what people's schedules are. You can continue it for up to 5 days, but that wouldn't be workable. I just think that people may be waning a bit. And if you want to have that discussion, it might be more productive if people can move their calendars around and continue the meeting tomorrow.
Yes, that is always an option. Keep in mind that the next scheduled meeting is the 11th. Items would be due to the packet Thursday at 4. So there's also that consideration, but I will entertain comments from the council in terms of keeping going now versus other options. Councilmember Taylor?
Let's go for it. This is
Okay.
pushed through.
That is my preference. Okay, Madam Clerk, please read in the next item.
Item 10, a resolution on the City Council's own motion submitting to the voters at the November 8th, 2022 general municipal election and advisory measure on spending public funds for infrastructure and other costs related to the development of the Oakland Athletics proposed baseball stadium and real estate project at Howard Terminal.
Thank you. Councilmember Gaio, would you like to introduce your item?
Yes, thank you. I want to first of all thank the members of the public, our neighbors, our residents, and also the city attorney for helping us develop the language that's before you to make sure that the legalities are all met and all the regulations and so forth. And so this item is from the public, and we represent the public that elected us, came at their request to ask the city council to put this on the ballot in November as an advisory vote. And the reason why it was asked is I think we've been, and all of us recognize for a number of years now, 2-3 years, we've been in discussion regarding Howard Terminal in terms of the A's leaving the Coliseum. But for the record, I want to make it very clear. I've been an A's fan all my life. I attended, supported the A's, and have a great deal of respect for the business of baseball. And I would still prefer them to be at the Coliseum and continue to develop it, grow it. And certainly you have all the transportation means from the airport, the BART, the bus, the highways that we as taxpayers paid for, to make sure that that Coliseum continue to be a professional site for sports. And also, we are still paying for it, considering the fact that the Raiders left with the same argument that is being presented today. and also the Warriors. And you all know that you were here, that we had to go to court 3 times to get the 30 million from the Warriors to give back to the city of Oakland. And so we have, for those of you that don't know the history, even I think Rebecca would understand that this is not the first time that the A's have chose a different location to build a stadium. When I got on the council, they were moving to Fremont. They were going to the city of Fremont. That didn't work out. Then they were going to San Jose. They had the land, everything in place, except the Giants said, no, you're not going to take our fans from us. And they stayed in Oakland. And so what you have before you is a public request as an advisory to be able to make sure that the citizens of Oakland are not going to be held responsible for not only the federal and state funds that could be used to rebuild West Oakland, to rebuild the streets in East Oakland, to provide safety throughout our city, but also to make sure that it is clearly defined. Because as of today, I still don't have a complete picture. What are the A's asking for? And what are the A's offering and willing to pay or develop? And that's why when this item came up, I was Carol Fife and I had asked the city council or the administration to provide an economic financial analysis in terms of Howard Terminal. Because my conversations with the 2 previous city managers, they had said that they had opposed. They would oppose Howard Terminal based on the cost and the needs for the public to be able to pay. So not only property taxes, paying off bonds, tax increments, and then at the end, if there are any cost overruns, well, the residents would have to pay for that. And so for me, it's very clear from the public, and at first I didn't even agree on the first with them, that I would like to take it to the November election to be able to receive what is the plan, what is the actual financial obligations that the residents of Oakland, not so much the city council, the residents of Oakland would have to pay now through the 10-year process of developing Howard Terminal, and afterwards, once it's developed, because the A's only agreed for a 20-year contract. And so I want to bring that up to you for your consideration. And not only is there concern within the residents, but I also have a resolution with the whereases from the African American Sports and Entertainment Group that we had contracted with to develop the Coliseum. And they provided this for me last week to bring to the council, to hopefully direct the council and the administrator to get the Oakland A's to sit down with them to begin negotiating on the Coliseum, since they already own half of it, and we have the other half. And the African American Sports and Entertainment Group, they have the investors that are willing to put in millions to get the project started. They also have some deadlines that they have to make with the ENA and some other environmental, but yet there's no cooperation or negotiation with the Oakland A's to get that Coliseum built, rebuilt, or at least make it where it's manageable for the citizens of Oakland to better utilize that property. So, I can go on, but due to the interest of time, the request is very clear. The residents, your neighbors, my neighbors, the ones that elected us, they're asking us to be able to have this information on the ballot. And I think at the end of the day, we have to recognize this is a business. The Fisher family's multi-billionaire is not so much about Oakland, but it's a business about how do we generate dollars for my account. And that's pretty much the way I see this developing into, is not so much. So this action we're taking is not so much about baseball, but it's what is in the best interest of the city of Oakland, considering the many needs, from the homeless to the public safety issue to our schools that we have today. And I've lived here all my life in Oakland, and I've never seen Oakland to the way it is today.
Thank you,
And certainly
Councilmember
we have
Gayo.
that responsibility to meet that obligation, because that's certainly for me, that's a priority. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up is Councilmember Fife.
Thank you, Council President Bass. I just wanted to clarify a few things, and we still have our translators with us, correct?
Through the chair, they logged off at 10.
That's unfortunate. But thank you, Madam Clerk. So I will just say that I know there's been a lot of misinformation that's been going around, and there are people who are ACE supporters that feel like the East Oakland Stadium Alliance is misinforming people, and there's people from the supporters of the A's that think that it's vice versa. Everyone is saying that there's misinformation going around, but I want to start with number one, the inaccurate statement that this referendum would cost at least $1 million to the voters of Oakland. That wasn't true in March when it was stated, and it's not true today. I wanted to clarify that. I also want to clarify for the record that it will not cost, that it will actually cost Oakland taxpayers funds in moving forward with this project. And the ballpark is 1/12 of the development. And the ballpark is privately funded. That is true. But the reality is there's a lot more that needs to be funded for this project to take place. And the funds that are generated, if it moves forward, will stay in that location for decades. So I just want to be really clear, because there's misinformation going on in a lot of places. And if we're going to tell the truth, we need to tell the truth all the way around. And the fact that we're getting funds from the federal, state, and other government entities doesn't mean that that's not taxpayer money. It's all taxpayer money. It's not just magic private dollars that go into grants that would fund infrastructure development. And it's disingenuous to say that what marginalized communities in West Oakland need is to be connected to the waterfront. There's so many deep needs that arise from the state of Oakland right now that we need to really, really be cautious about how we utilize our dollars. And I know there are a lot of people that have projected my position or have put words in my mouth about where I stand. But the truth is, where we started and where we are now, is that I want clarity and I want answers, and I want to know what the city of Oakland residents will be on the hook for, and we still haven't received that. And the last I heard from the A's is that there's an additional $300 million that's needed to close the gap for funding for this project. And I think if we're going to utilize that kind of money that the city of Oakland residents have to pay for generations to come, they should have a voice. They should have a say in that. So while I didn't draft this particular legislation, I want to be clear that I do support Oakland voters having a say in how their tax money will be spent. I've had several town halls, Zoom meetings, community meetings. I've been to town nights last week at 2 different locations, and people in the streets, they're all telling me the same thing. Let me have a say. It doesn't mean that you support it or you don't support it. They just want to have a say. And what's the fear in letting people voice their decision through an advisory vote? It's not going to delay a project that doesn't exist. They just want to have a say that if their funds are going to be used, then they should get to tell us what they want to see. And as elected officials, even if this doesn't move forward today, it will be in front of voters in November. It'll just be in the form of who they vote for re-election. So I just want to be really clear. And with that, Madam Chair, I am complete.
Thank you. Okay, let's hear from other council members. I also invite the city administration and staff to chime in here as well. Okay. Let's go first to Council Member Kolb, and then we'll hear from Betsy Lake.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Madam President. And thank you, Councilmember Gayo, for bringing this forward. I appreciate all the things that you said, as well as the things that Councilmember Fife said. As I mentioned in Rules Committee, I'm not prepared yet to bring this to bring whatever the this is, and I don't even know what the this is yet. We don't have a deal in front of us, to a vote of the citizens. But I see a possible scenario. I hope it doesn't come to play, but there's a possible scenario that when the deal does come to us and doesn't have certain things that I need to see in it, at that point, I would support it. And if that's a special election just on this measure, like in January, so be it. But I want them to understand that we need to see certain things. I think all of us in the council recall the things we asked for, and there's still negotiations underway. And one of the key things that is outstanding is that I want to see, and this relates to the money question that people have been asking, I want to see ironclad, legally binding financial backstops in the proposal, whatever comes before us, the development agreement, what have you, that says if the infrastructure financing district falls short of projections, if there are cost overruns in the infrastructure that the city is agreeing to pay for, if that the city's general fund and the city's dedicated ongoing funding sources that we already have coming to us, general fund or not, that those are protected, that the things we already get and already spend money on are protected, and that these additional costs, if it turns out those additional expenditures are needed to get things to be finished, will be paid for by the A's. The A's are the financial backstop, not the city's ongoing funds and general funds. That's what I need to see. If those financial ironclad backstops are in the deal that comes before us, whenever that comes before us in the fall, then I'm okay with us making a decision. I don't know how I'm going to vote on that, but at least I'm okay not having to go to the voters. If those ironclad backstops, and I hope the A's are listening to this, or at least they hope they play this tape, if those ironclad backstops are not in the deal that comes before us, I will vote to put this on the ballot at a special election. And I'm saying that publicly again. So that's my position. I'm not going to vote for this today, but I might vote for it in the future down the road. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Betsy Lake with the administration.
Thank you, Council President. Elizabeth Lake, Assistant City Administrator, and I wanted to just touch on 3 points as you consider this issue. One is I wanted to provide a reminder and a clarification of what we are negotiating with respect to the Waterfront Ballpark District, talk a little bit about the public outreach process, and then explain some of staff's concern about the proposed ballot measure. So first, Councilmember Kolb is right. We don't have a deal yet to vote on, but it is important to restate that it was this council's clear direction for staff to negotiate a deal that is within the framework approved by the council on July 2021. And that framework requires that the deal not impact the general fund or our current Oakland taxpayers, and that it is beneficial to the city. And that is really the North Star that we are following. And although we're still negotiating, the main deal points remain, and those include, as Councilmember Fife said, that the stadium would be 100% privately financed by the Oakland A's. All the residential and commercial development in the district would be 100% privately financed by the A's. The deal would tax the A's as a future owner of the project site and leverage those A's tax dollars to fund new public infrastructure and affordable housing, both on the project site as well as in the 4 impacted districts surrounding it, Jack London, downtown, West Oakland, and Chinatown, and build 18 acres of new public parks on the Oakland waterfront. And with respect to offsite infrastructure, most of which will implement existing city plans, policies, and the city council's approved capital improvement program, it would be funded by federal, state, and regional grants, which of course is the normal way the city obtains money for such transportation infrastructure. Second, I do want to remind everyone of the extensive public participation that has been a hallmark of this project. There have been many opportunities for public participation already and more to come. Thousands of Oaklanders have already expressed their opinions through public comment, public information workshops, extensive engagement to develop community benefits recommendations, and more. And in fact, since 2019, more than 100 meetings have been held, including over a dozen public meetings at the City Council, the Port, Alameda County Board of Supervisors, Bay Conservation Development Commission, as some examples. And it's not over yet. Going forward, before any deal at the former Howard Terminal site can be approved, there will be numerous additional opportunities for public comment and input. Once a deal is final with staff, the project will go in front of the Planning Commission, will hold a hearing at the CED, and it will proceed to 2 hearings at the City Council. And importantly, as many of you have mentioned, once we have the final deal, we'll be bringing a full economic analysis of the deal to CED, just like we did with the term sheet in the summer of 2021. And that analysis is easily available on the city's website and will be thoroughly updated to reflect the final deal terms and to provide our decision makers and the public with full and transparent information, just like we did in July of 2021. Then even after the City Council, the public process isn't done. The project must be approved by the Port, the Bay Conservation Development Commission, the Department of Toxic Substances Control, the State Lands Commission. And each of these processes are open and transparent, providing opportunities for the public to provide decision makers with their advice and perspective. So finally, in addition to our concern that this measure would interfere with what the council has directed us to do with respect to this particular project, staff is concerned with the following issues presented by the ballot measure. One, it's vague. It asks our residents whether they agree with using, quote, public funding to fund infrastructure, which is technically the way government funds almost all public infrastructure. Pursuing grants and utilizing tax increment financing are essential economic development tools without which we wouldn't have been able to create treasured community assets like restoring the Fox Theater, the Rotunda, Children's Hospital Research Institute, or develop projects like Uptown, MacArthur BART, Coliseum BART Station, and Fruitvale BART Station projects. And it is advisory, which means it's non-binding and therefore does amount to what we would consider a fairly expensive survey that would create delay and doubt for the project, which is still under negotiation, meaning, again, there's not yet a project to vote on or agree or disagree with. So in a nutshell, staff is concerned that the proposed measure would undermine what this council voted for and directed us to do. And with that, turn it back.
Thank you. Okay, colleagues, looking for others to weigh in here.
Madam President, if there's no one else, I'm just.
Okay, I do see Councilmember Taylor with his hand up. Go ahead, Councilmember.
Sure thing. I was waiting on somebody else to go, but I'll go ahead and jump in with my thoughts. So I definitely hear those who express their concern there around being able to have a say in a vote and be a part of the process. I want to acknowledge that staff have done a significant amount of engagement already and in many different forums across the city through the community benefits process and so many others that I've been able to be a part of, and many that I haven't been able to be a part of just because there's been so much. I also hear that there's I wanted to acknowledge that there are some of those who are against having a vote that were saying, hey, well, residents can't are unable to assess all of the details and the nuance of the project. And I wanted to wholeheartedly disagree with that and acknowledge that we've got some very smart, intelligent residents here in Oakland that absolutely can do as good of a job as we are doing on the council in terms of going through all the details and data and everything else. To me, the issue is that the current ballot measure is worded, it's worded as a terrible question. It's extremely vague. It doesn't provide any real value or information that will be helpful in an advisory capacity. So yeah, wholeheartedly disagree that with the public speakers that said our residents are unable to assess the details and the nuance of the project. I believe that, you know, our educated Oakland voters are not stupid. The ballot question is stupid. It's dumbed down in a way that is confusing, non-specific, uninformative. And I think the one commenter had it right. Based on the current question, we won't know if a voter is voting against Dave Cavill and John Fisher. They're voting against moving the A's from the Coliseum. They're voting against having 35% affordable housing instead of 50% affordable housing, or voting against the use of condominium transfer fees to fund a portion of the community benefits or not. And that level of just not being specific is going to be very uninformative, is not going to help us out. And we're going to be in a worse off situation at the end if this is what moves forward. If there was a survey or a ballot measure advisory, whatever you want to call it, for me to be supportive of it, it would have to be very targeted and specific in terms of highlighting the deal terms and having that be the question and not the backup materials if someone were to double click or read through a pamphlet, you know, that sort of thing. And so the things that would need to be in the question that are asked are, you know, the amount of City of Oakland revenues that are committed to the project that would exist regardless of whether the project were to happen, the amount of City of Oakland revenues committed to the project that would only exist if the project were to be completed, the amount of city dollars at risk if the revenues come in lower than projected, the amount of affordable housing units that are committed to be developed, both on-site and off-site, the amount of construction jobs that will be created, the amount of ongoing jobs that will be created, the amount of current tax revenues from Howard Terminal coming to the City of Oakland, and the amount of annual tax revenues that will be coming to the City of Oakland upon project completion. None of that detail is in the question, which means that it's not going to be an informed answer, not because we don't have, you know, intelligent residents, but because we're not actually framing the question in a way that will be informative and helpful. And so that, to me, is the concern with what we have. As is, I would not be able to support this measure. If there was a much more thorough question, perhaps, but I did want to just be on the record that we're not setting ourselves up for success with what's proposed. And that's my fear and concern with respect to what's being proposed.
Thank you. Councilmember Gaio?
Yes, I'd like to respond to that. You know, again, I understand what is being said, but you know, Lauren, what you have to recognize, we've been at this for years. We just didn't start this negotiation and planning. So you want to keep delaying it, more talk. Even the African American Sports and Entertainment Group, the African American Sports and Entertainment Group gave me resolution because there's no cooperation. That's public land that we own half, that we want to develop, make sure that East Oakland thrives like it used to. But you want to keep talking about it. Where is the plan, city staffers? We should have had that city council. But for me, having it come from the public is the motivation to get the job done. Provide the information that I requested, and that's going to get done in September. So at least Lauren Taylor will have some numbers, because right now you don't have any to. You're absolutely right. You're just talking. I can ask a million questions, but what motivated me, and thanks to Carol Fife for bringing the item, what motivated me, right now you have about, 15,000 letters that are signed. We get emails daily. We get phone calls daily from the public. Due to the fact that what's going on in your streets, Lauren Taylor, I've never seen Oakland the mess that it is today. So I want to get that job done, members of the city administration, I want to get those streets fixed. I want to get my schools open. And we don't have that information to get it done. Oh no, let's do another study. You can do all kinds of other things. So for me, Madam Chairperson, I will make a motion to honor the request of the public, with all due respect to each one of you, to get it on the ballot. That'll force us to make sure that we get out there and negotiate and get the information and get the whatever it's going to cost the city taxpayers dollars, that we should have that information in front of us now, because I have the history of the Raiders. The A's are out there negotiating with Las Vegas daily, using us to leverage more resources from Las Vegas. That's how committed they are, Lauren Taylor. And that's how committed they were going to Fremont and going to San Jose. And, but anyways, with all, Madam Chairperson, I'll go ahead and leave it at that, but I'll make a motion to honor the voters' request and get it on the ballot for November. And let us do the work to make sure we have the information to vote upon. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Fife?
Yes, I'll just briefly make a couple comments based on what Betsy said, which is that thousands of Oakland residents have participated in this process. And I'll say, since I've been on council, it's been consistently restated to me that the community that is requested to be a part of this process are community members that have already agreed to bring the A's to Howard Terminal. So it's in essence saying, we don't want to talk to people who have questions. We don't want to talk to people to allay their fears. We don't want to discuss any additional anything unless you agree to the project. I've been told that by city staff, including staff from the city administrator's office on several occasions. And I don't believe that's how you get the best deal for Oakland, even if you want the stadium at Howard Terminal. I think that there needs to be more aggressive negotiation that is not happening. And why would it, when the A's are paying for our legal advice and other things, which I understand is also part of the process. But still, there's just a lot that's disingenuous about this whole process. And once again, I believe that we should tell the truth. And I don't believe Oakland voters are stupid. They have to weigh in on a lot. Nor do I believe, as was stated by one of our council colleagues, that this is a dumbed down question. And I think that's quite disrespectful to label Councilmember Gallo in that way. So I just want to say that I will second this motion, Councilmember Gallo. And I think we need to continue to move the agenda and this conversation.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second. I will allow comments from any council members who haven't yet spoken on this item. Vice Mayor Kaplan.
Thank you very much. And Councilmember Gallo, I heard you say something that I thought was really interesting just now about the importance of making sure that the negotiations around Coliseum proceed. And I just wanted to double check whether you were saying that that would be embedded in this item or you would bring that as a separate item. And I just want to restate how much I respect your leadership on that and my interest in working with you on that.
Yes, that's a separate item that has already been written, all the whereases and resolution written by the African American Sports and Entertainment Group. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, I look forward to following up on that separately, given that. And then my question to staff, this is in some ways related to what Councilmember Kolb was asking, is what does staff expect would be the timeline by which we would have a better sense of the nuts and bolts and dollars and cents of the proposal? Thank you.
Okay, let's hear that answer. When the staff is ready, please raise your hand. And in the meantime, I'll go first to Councilmember Tao.
Thank you, Council President. I just want to appreciate Councilmember Gallo for you continuing to lead the charge in your values and what you believe. I think that is why we are all elected, right? We go out and we campaign on our values, and you're sticking with your values, and I really appreciate that and I respect that. And in regards to, I'm excited to actually hear an actual proposal, hopefully sometime soon. I know that in the Rules Committee, we scheduled your item, Councilmember Gallo, to September 20th to hear the cost benefit analysis. So I look forward to that. And I'm in the same boat, Councilmember Gallo, today. I'm in the same boat as Councilmember Cobb. You know, if there needs to be a special election that is called when we do get that proposal so that we can see the cost benefit analysis, then I am all for that. But can't vote with you today, but I do appreciate your values and what you bring. And yeah, I just want to say thank you for continuing that.
Thank you. Let's go to Betsy Lake.
Yes, through the chair, with respect to the question on the timeline, you know, we are hoping to come back to the council in this fall with the deal that we can analyze. We can't actually have the analysis until we have reached a final deal. So it's our hope and expectation that that we'll be back in the fall.
Thank you. Councilmember Reed.
Thank you. I'll just add to the conversation. We had a town hall for District 7, and one of the things, outside of a number of questions that were asked, and one of the things that we heard from those who were hearing and listening to the port, to the city, and to the A's, is that they want to hear the deal. They want to understand and have full transparency on the deal. They have questions that are still awaiting to be answered. They want to see the financial analysis. They want to understand more on the community benefits. And those are all things that I fully support. Transparency, outreach, engagement, education. I've asked for that for day one. And that is what I'm hearing. I certainly heard also our District 7 neighbors who called in, and we've had people calling in and emailing our office directly since this meeting has taken place today, asking again for more details, more information before we ask them to weigh in on a particular ballot measure that they would like to ensure that their voice may be lifted up on. And so I agree that there's more information that's needed. I wish that there would have been a detailed information report for this item outside of the legislation that's been provided. I believe that it's important for voters to also know the cost associated with all of the ballot measures that we are weighing today. I understand that ballot measures might on average be over $1 million, and someone can correct me or clarify that as well for the public to understand as we're considering a number of ballot measures. But there are still questions, there's still information, there is still a lack of information for I'm gonna take up for my district also, very bright and engaged voters to make a decision on information with the deal. And so I am going to wait for them to have the information that they are asking for to weigh in as voters on a measure. They have certainly had a lack of clarity with information that they're receiving, and they want to have the information in writing. And so I believe that an information report on that analysis is going to be critical for the voters to see and weigh in on anything that we're asking them to uplift their vote on. And so I regret also, Councilmember Gallo, that I will not be able to stand with you with the decision that you would like to have today. But knowing that every decision that we make is impactful to East Oakland with measures. And I believe that Ms. Lake stated, and we can certainly have her confirm the total public dollars associated that we know today that will be committed to this project development. If there is any analysis that can be stated on that funding gap that was addressed, what would be needed additionally, or how much public funds the A's have requested in resources that would impact meeting our urgent needs of the city, and especially in areas like East Oakland that were stated. I believe that all of those things and many more questions that we have that we are also looking for city staff's response on are helpful to us and especially to the voters that I represent. who are still seeking information and clarity to weigh in on this impactful decision.
Thank you. I'll share some of my own comments and then we will call the question. So like many of my colleagues, I do want to share first appreciations to Councilmember Gallo as well as Councilmember Fife, who is the council member of the district where this project would be. I hear loud and clear from literally dozens, hundreds, thousands of Oaklanders. You know, my email box is full. I have reams of paper in my office having heard from Oaklanders. I walk down the street and I hear from Oaklanders too. So I am taking all of this public comment very seriously. I also am the council member that represents Chinatown, which is about a mile away from the proposed project that will be impacted, just like Chinatown would have been impacted by the prior proposed site for the ballpark. And I do want my constituents to know, I want Oaklanders to know that as the District 2 representative, as the council president, I am listening to all sides on this issue. I definitely hear people who are concerned about what the public investment would be, who are concerned about the impact to our port and our port economy. And I also hear very much Oaklanders who are excited about what this opportunity could be, who want to keep the A's rooted in Oakland. So those are incredible decisions that we have to take into account with all of that information and public input. And I want to remind us that as your council president, I have been working to ensure that we have a strong framework, we have accountability. We will get our questions answered when the final deal comes to us. And again, there is no deal yet, but we did pass a framework in July of last year that lays out what we as the council want to see. And in addition to that, in February, we passed a resolution, which I co-authored together with Vice Mayor Kaplan and Councilmember Kalb, which lays out specifically before the development agreement comes to this council, we will get the financial report, which Councilmember Gallo has scheduled. We will get a detailed report on what the community benefits concretely will be. We have to hear about the affordable housing that we have put out as our goal. We have to hear about what the jobs policies will be, which is related to what the port needs to deliver. We also need to hear what the plan is for making the seaport continue to thrive. So all of those things will come to us before the development agreement is signed off on and voted upon by this council, in addition to all the other bodies that you heard about that will consider this project. So I want everyone to know that my job as council president is to make sure that we are doing our due diligence before we make decisions. We are listening, we are hearing what your concerns are, we are getting answers, and that we will fully vet this project because there's both a lot of opportunity and a lot of questions. So with that, I am not ready to put this on the ballot. I think we do need to have a deal so that we have the actual information about the numbers, the level of affordable housing, all of those things that we have already mentioned and put into resolutions that we want to know as a council. So I will not be able to support this today, but I am fully committed to making sure that we have a transparent process, we get our questions answered, and that we do allow for even more public participation than already exists through all of our meetings. So with that, I am ready to call the question. Councilmember Reed, I saw your hand just went up. If you could be brief,
yes,
please go ahead.
Through the chair, I just want to clarify, Councilmember Call made mention, and perhaps it might be helpful to the public with this process. Certainly, hearing that, we certainly prioritize making sure that we take care of our community and uplifting the voice of the voters over some of the things that were stated in public comments. But Councilmember Call mentioned potentially bringing a ballot measure forth in January. Can someone speak to what that process is? If this ballot measure today is not supported, what that opportunity could be? Is that appropriate for someone to address, to give clarity on what was meant by that comment for a potential restating or reworking as we gain more information for a future ballot measure?
Sure, Councilmember Call, do you
Yeah.
want to speak to that?
Sure, just to clarify, all I was saying was that if the proposal that does come before us, let's say in the fall, as Ms. Lake is suggesting, that, and it doesn't have what I or we feel is needed in terms of financial security, financial ironclad backstops, as I articulated a little while ago, then at that time, we can choose to create a special election. Now, there's a whole process to do that with the county, but cities are allowed to call special elections for ballot measures if we want to. I don't think that there's anything in our charter prohibiting us from doing that. And so when that special election would be determined when we deal with that at the council. I'm not suggesting I want that or I expect that to happen, but that's always an option we have on the table if we feel the deal before us should go to the voters at that time.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have the motion and second on the floor. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
On item 10, moved by Councilmember Gaio, seconded by Councilmember Fife. Councilmember Fife.
Madam Clerk, I do see Councilmember Fife's hand up. Councilmember Fife.
Through the chair to the clerk or perhaps the city attorney, wouldn't the cost of a special election be more than the cost of putting something on the ballot for November?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to check.
Yes, it would, certainly.
I'm just saying, okay, thank you. I'm prepared to vote.
On item 10, moved by Councilmember Gaio, seconded by Councilmember Fife. Councilmember Fife.
Aye.
Councilmember Gaio.
Aye.
Councilmember Call.
No.
Vice Mayor Kaplan.
Abstain.
Councilmember Reed.
No.
Councilmember Taylor.
No.
Pro Tem Tao.
No.
Council President Abbas.
No.
Motion fails with a vote of 2 ayes, 5 noes, 1 abstention.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone who's been engaging on this. And thank you, Council Members Gaio and Fife. I know that was not the outcome that you wanted, but hopefully the discussion was helpful. I think we are committed to ensuring there is even more information and more process participation, transparency going forward. Okay, we do have a full agenda, as we know. I believe that the next 2 items I did want to call together because they are related.
Calling in items 11 and 12 together, starting with item 11. Adopt a resolution on the City Council's own motion submitting to the voters for the November 8th, 2022 general municipal election, a measure entitled Establishing Term Limits for the City Council that would amend the city charter to limit council members to 3 consecutive 4-year terms as a district council member and 3 consecutive 4-year terms as an at-large council member, and directing the city clerk to fix the date for submission of arguments and provide for notice and publication and take any and all actions necessary under law to prepare for and conduct the November 8th general municipal election. And item 12, adopt a resolution on City Council's own motion submitting to the voters for the November 8th, 2022 general municipal election, a government reform measure that would amend the city charter to, among other things, establish term limits for council members, require a minimum of 2 council hearings before certain council proposed ballot measures are approved for placement on the ballot, count council member abstentions and absences as a no vote on council motions, resolutions, and ordinances for purposes of determining whether mayor has authority to cast a tie-breaking vote, change the formula for the Public Ethics Commission to set council member salaries, and authorizing the Public Ethics Commission to set the salaries of the city auditor and city attorney, grant a council authority to terminate city administrator for cause, and add clarified duties of provide minimum staffing for the auditor, directing the city clerk to fix the date for submission of arguments and provide notice of publication and take any and all actions necessary to conduct the November 8th election.
Thank you. So I would like to invite Councilmember Kalb first, given that your item is quite comprehensive. Please go ahead and make your presentation.
Thank you, Madam President. And Madam Clerk, may I share a screen, please? Okay, let's see if I could find the right. Okay, hold on. Okay, can you see a blue background there?
Yes.
Okay, just as a preface, and thank you, colleagues, I know it's late. I want to just say that the goal here, in my mind, of working with the city attorney's office, talking with a number of people, a number of people representing organizations that have expressed an interest in one provision or another, or a few provisions or another. The goal here, my goal here, wasn't to say, I'm going to create the completely comprehensive charter reform and look at every section of the charter and make a whole bunch of changes, and we're going to have 25 pages and 30 sections. That wasn't my goal here. My goal was to deal with a few things that I think we can get some consensus on, or near consensus on. I won't, not 100%, but near consensus on most of these things, and see where we land. And that's why I wanted to have a brief discussion now before we get to next Monday. So that's and whatever we pass, if we pass something onto the ballot this year, that does not preclude the council and the city from engaging in some additional process to deal with a broader range of charter measures. In fact, having only one charter measure in a 3 or 4 year period, and that's all you have, it could be too much. It could be too many things in there. So anyway, I'm going to move to the next slide. Here's what this charter measure does that I'm proposing. It creates term limits for city council members. As you know, we have term limits for the mayor. It's 2 terms for the mayor. Not uncommon for cities to have 2 term limits for the chief executives of larger cities, but we don't have any term limits for city council members. I think that having that, while I'm not saying it's like, I'm extremely excited about it, and it's extremely important to do, and the world will come to an end if we don't do it. But I think on balance, I think there's value in having 3 term limits for city council members. I do believe that those term limits should not be lifetime. They should be just consecutive term limits. And I do believe the term limits should not be retroactive. People ran under certain circumstances, voters voted under certain circumstances.